All right, calling to order Historic Landmarks Commission, May 25th, 2022. All right, so why don't we start with public comment. Now that we're back in person, we have speaker slips off to the side there, and any member of the public can fill out a speaker slip. And
Pardon me, Chair Grumbine, if we could start with roll call before
oh,
we
sorry,
begin.
yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, I jumped. I don't see a roll call there, so I'm. Okay, roll call, please.
Yes, thank you. So I'll take the roll call. We have Chair Grumbine.
Here.
Vice Chair House is absent. Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Dordan.
Here.
Commissioner Drury.
Here.
Commissioner Lundvik is also absent. Commissioner Manuel.
Here.
And Commissioner Uli.
Present.
All right, we have a quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we'll go to item A, public comment. So any member of the public can address the commission on things that are not on this agenda, on anything else, but that's still in our jurisdiction. And to do so, you can fill out a speaker slip off to the side there and hand it in, but you could do that afterwards if you want to speak now. So any member of the public wishing to speak on something not on the agenda?
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine. So I'll go ahead and start with virtual public comment,
yes.
and then I'll move into in-person. So I see a few members of the public joining by Zoom. If you would like to speak on general public comment, please raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak, and I will call on you. All right, so I don't see any hands raised, so I'll move to in-person public comment. I haven't received any public speaker slips, but we did receive written correspondence from Cassandra Ensberg, Accessible Santa Barbara, and Paulina Kahn. And so with that, I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Grumbine.
Great, thank you. All right, so, and not seeing any public here wishing to comment, we will close public comment. And on to item B, approval of the minutes of Historic Landmarks Commission, May 11th, 2022.
Move approval of minutes.
Motion by Commissioner Uli to approve. You gonna second it? Thank you, Commissioner Drury. Under discussion, and yeah, make sure to turn on your microphone. Do you have any edits?
I have an edit.
All right, Commissioner Jordan.
On page 4, under the description of my comments, there's a reference up to 350 square feet. It should be 450.
All right. Thank you for that edit. All right, we'll edit that. Any other edits for the minutes? Yes, Vice Chair House.
Are we?
Welcome.
So we're on the minutes. Did I print out the right thing? Oh, yes. On page 2, item D.
Okay, one
says,
second. Sorry, we'll just flip.
Item 2 was notice for 3, the item will be opened and continued to start at 3. Was that a mistake? I think it was to be a different time or something.
Hold on one second, let's just get to it, and we're looking at it on the screen, so.
So,
Where-
Mr. Chair, through you,
Okay, D1A.
If we can scroll up, maybe?
so that was initially scheduled for 2 o'clock, or there was an error on, between the agenda and the notice, so we've waited a little bit and had to do the time on that.
Okay, so the agenda said 2. Is that-
Correct, and then we had to, or maybe Mary remembered, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a highly important thing in the minutes, but it certainly is confusing right
We
now.
wanted to make it, we had to push it back based on the notice and the agenda so that it was correct for members of the public who wanted to participate.
No, I understand that. Okay, no big deal.
Any other edits to the minutes? Speak now, all right. In that case, we've got a motion and a second. All those, and are we doing the down the line roll call vote? Okay.
We are.
All right, let's do the roll call vote, please.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Abstain.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Right, motion carries.
All right, we are on to item C, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner.
I apologize, but I must depart at 4:45 today.
Okay.
You think so, huh?
Well, we'll be done by then.
Yeah.
So. All right. Any other announcements, et cetera? All right. Seeing none, let's close item C. On to item D, subcommittee reports. Any subcommittees meet or have anything to report?
Mr. Chair,
Vice Chair House.
the Surfaces Subcommittee of the Plaza de la Guerra Revitalization Committee met at, I want to say Solid Rock, but that's not it. It's a stone yard that's at the corner opposite Copper Supply, Garden and Yananali is whatever it is there. And so we had a very interesting tour of the place. We got to see workers splitting a giant boulder
Nice.
and all sorts of interesting things. But we got to see a variety of different stone materials. And Brad Hess from Public Works had prepared conceptual cost comparison of things. So there's a lot of stuff to go through. But anyway, we're making progress. So
Okay, great. Thank you
we
for.
have another committee meeting coming up this next week, perhaps, something like that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for reporting that.
Yes,
Commissioner
Chair.
Drury?
Yes, went to the Arts Advisory meeting on Thursday afternoon at the Faulkner Gallery, and the most important thing was a commemorative statue of the diving industry, a diver in modern gear, because the Santa Barbara is well known as a kind of a hotbed of innovation in the commercial diving business. And it'll stand sort of proud of the bulwark wall in between that and the beachside grill.
Okay.
Very, very attractive statue, really beautifully done. It was a good meeting.
I'm glad you didn't say Santa Barbara is known as a dive.
A dive community.
Taken that as true.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Drury. Any other subcommittee reports? All right. So we'll close subcommittee reports, and if we're on time, I think we are-ish. So let's go on to item 1, the archaeology report for 3707 State Street. Do we have anyone from the applicant team here? All right, great. All right, so this is the Chick-fil-A restaurant proposes to convert the existing one-lane drive-through to a new two-lane drive-through for the existing service window. The project includes a new canopy over the drive-through lanes behind the building, new ordering stations, menus, boards with small canopies, widening and removal of 15 parking spaces, new bike racks, a new stormwater treatment system, and other site improvements. Landscaping requires consideration by the ABR of an alternative landscape design. This is a request for acceptance of a Phase 1 Archaeological Resources Report prepared by Brent Leftwich, PhD of Leftwich Archaeology. The report was reviewed by Dr. Glassow, who agrees with its conclusions and recommendations. So, welcome. If you can state your name for the record.
Brett Leftwich, I'm the author of the report,
Okay.
and it's a fairly cut and dry project. There is, not going into too much detail because of confidentiality of archaeological.
Yeah, sorry, I should have pointed out, yeah, and if you can get the microphone right close to your mouth, there we go.
Brett Leftwich, I'm the author of the report. This is sort of a cut and dry project. There is an adjacent sensitive site on adjacent property. Cannot go into detail since it's a confidential, but the project area is already heavily disturbed. It was the Burger King built in the 70s, and the site that is nearby has been fully mitigated and is now under a large housing complex. So regardless, any development on that property will not impact anything at all.
All right. And for the record, it wasn't a cow Burger King graveyard. Sorry. I had to, all right. Any question? Oh, we'll go to public comment, and then we'll come back to the commission for questions, if that ends your presentation. Okay. All right. So, Ms.
Yes.
Chernousky?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. So I'll start with virtual public comment. If any member of the public joining by Zoom would like to speak on item 1, please raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak, and I will call on you. All right, so I don't see any hands raised by Zoom, so I'll move to in-person public comment. I haven't received any requests to speak, and we haven't received any written correspondence. So I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right. Thank you. And to the commission, any questions? All right. Yeah, since we closed public comment. All right. So if there's no questions, does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the report.
All right. Commissioner Uli, second by Vice Chair House. Under discussion. Any discussion? All right. In that case, roll call vote, please.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Drury,
Yep.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Right, motion carries.
All right. Thank you. We are on. Thank you. We are on to item 2.
Chair Grumbine, I got
yes,
to recuse myself from
Commissioner
item 2,
All right.
unfortunately, for conflict of interest with the applicant team.
All right. Thank you. All right. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cornell.
All right.
You just made it back from Peru? Wow. Good.
Awesome.
You're on
All right.
Peru time.
Is that, I think, the same, or is it same time, or is it
No, it's 2 hours.
2 hours? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before we begin, we have Kathy Kennedy here, who is the project planner for this project, and she has
Okay.
a brief announcement before we begin.
All right. Perfect. If you could. Oh,
I could wait until
well,
you're
I
after read it.
Okay,
and then I'll
perfect.
like
I'll
to say
read out
something.
this project description. All right, so this is Project 2, 101 Garden Street. This is, the project site is located in the EPV. The project consists of a new 250-room, 235,000 square foot hotel located on a 4.5 acre site at the southwest corner of Garden and East Yananali Streets. The project site is Area A of Cabrillo Plaza specific plan. Let's see, the hotel would consist of 120 standard guest rooms and 130 extended stay guest rooms. A total of 266 parking spaces would be provided, 33 surface and 233 in an underground parking garage. All existing structures and uses on the site would be removed. The project includes a voluntary lot merger of the 6 lots. The project requires Planning Commission approval for a parking modification, development plan, and coastal development permit. So no final appealable action will be taken to place at this hearing. Project compatibility findings will be required for project design approval. The project also requires Planning Commission approval of a parking lot modification, development plan, and coastal development permit. The project was last reviewed August 7th, 2019, and we'll go to those minutes after. But let me first
Yes.
start. with Ms.
Thank you,
Kennedy.
Chair. I wanted to bring up a couple of items. First of all, this has been submitted for another 30-day review by staff, so it's under review currently. And 2 items, if this project is ready to move forward to the Planning Commission, we would like you to review the project compatibility findings today, if you're ready for that. And also, the applicant's requesting that story poles not be required for HLC review, so I think they have some renderings to show you. So we'd like a determination on whether you want to see story poles or not.
Okay,
Okay, so those 2
Great.
items. Thank you.
all right. All right, so with that, why don't we go to the blank screen?
I haven't done this, so do I go to full?
Oh, yeah, so,
Do I go to
why
full
don't we go
screen?
over, yeah, so it's gonna be, we each have screens, ours doesn't work now.
Yeah, you're on forward and it's
So
off.
this is,
What did you do?
yeah, so,
I have a way with electronics.
Plugged in?
can you turn it,
Oh, did it
turn it
come
off and on
unplugged
again?
in the back? Yeah, it's coming on.
Yeah, that's true.
There we go.
You break it, you buy it.
Yeah.
but it's not very big, so it might not be very expensive.
Old guy.
So, just as the new way of doing things now, which we're trying out, is the laptop works and with the mouse, and you're going to be clicking through the presentation. We see the screen here and here, and it's also posted up there, I believe. So we're all seeing kind of the same thing. We currently don't have paper plans at all, but we have been complaining, so maybe one day we'll have 11 by 17s. Yeah. So that we can review at the same time other commissioners that want to flip through. And so, yeah, we ask that you kind of walk us through, and we'll just need to go back and forth per whatever the screen is, and we may end up, the mouse does reach, so we may end up grabbing the mouse at some
Okay,
point.
that's
to
fine,
point
and
stuff
I'll
out.
try not to move too quickly. So
Okay.
this is really not legible, and as a cover sheet, it has all the statistics you would ever want, but in a nutshell,
Oh, and actually, before you start on that, I want to go over the minutes from last time.
Okay, go
as
ahead.
part of it. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
and
I'm
you-
sorry.
yeah,
Thank
Why don't you
you.
introduce yourself for
so
the record?
Brian Cornell, this is Dave Ireland. We are, so we are working together, and Courtney Jane Miller, and
Okay.
I knew I
you.
wouldn't get that right.
All right, great.
So, yeah, it's
All
been
right.
3 years almost since we saw this last. I think you were here, you were here.
Yeah, and actually, we'll read the minutes because
Michael.
that'll also tell, yep, who we had. Okay, so, all right, so let's see, we had, continue, the motion was to continue indefinitely to Planning Commission with the following comments. 1, in general, the commission finds the mass, bulk, and scale to be appropriate for the area, land, and views. 2, the Monterey and Spanish styles currently used are appropriate, but other styles like Mission Revival would also be appropriate. 3, the Monterey style on the 3-story element is not appropriate. 4, the portico share and restaurant windows need further development. In general, the 3-story masses need more plaster and chimneys. 6, the generous setbacks are appreciated. 7, the commission suggests integrating Monterey cypress trees rather than palm trees on the corner. 8, some members of the commission would like more information about the roof decks. 9, the landscape plan is generally acceptable for the time being. That's the ominous. And then 10, study the floodgates and the emergency equipment. The motion was by Mahan. The second one was by House. 8-0-0. Drury was absent. The motion carried. And it was a long time ago, but though.
You are new to this.
Yeah. What's that? Well, he might.
Before we begin, may I ask a question?
Sure.
What is the location exactly? It's not the Stoneyard property, is it?
No, it's Catacorner.
Catacorner, where the
It's where
Channel City lumber used to be.
all the containers and
Oh, I'm
stuff
very-
are
no,
where.
This is brand new to me. I'm pleased.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. And so speaking of which, those of you who were not on it or did not watch the video, please, you're welcome to ask questions, but refrain from comments and also voting. So if you
Yeah,
will not.
I mean, Mr. Chair, at this point, we're 3 years into this. I don't really have any problem with, I mean, it's effectively a new.
But rules are rules.
Okay, fine.
Quick question, was the design the same design that we reviewed before?
It's very, very similar.
Okay, so.
And I'll go through that.
Okay, so depending on how much of it is different or new, if it's a continued application, we'll go by our rules where we have to have seen it first.
So we stopped working on this, back right after the HLC review. Michael Rosenfeld was the owner of this at the time, who did the California, and it sat languishing for a number of maybe years, months. Dave and I were working on it before together, and the new ownership kept us on, and we've continued. So going back to the history of this, this is all part of the specific.
Sorry, I should have said one more thing. You have 15 minutes, and make sure to go through, if it is a similar design, go through how
Sure.
those points were answered.
So Bill Wright did this specific plan back in the 80s, and of course, what he did through the specific plan was designate this parcel for a 250-room hotel, Catter Corner, where the rock pile is, was designated as a 40,000 square foot market. And then, of course, the other side was at one point thought to be an aquarium and numerous other things. So this is finally the one piece of the specific plan that seems to be moving forward. Garden Street was built as part of that specific plan, and so now we're here with the 250-room hotel. Bill Wright was, quite a character. He wanted this property, which otherwise would not have been in the HLC purview, to be part of historic landmarks. He was a passionate guy. He loved the connection between Monterey and Santa Barbara, particularly Daniel Hill and the Larkin House. And he was absolutely adamant that he wanted there to be some Monterey architecture on this site. So we have actually, this is the one piece that is very important that we've kept, is this piece, which is the Monterey piece. That is going to be very traditionally detailed, and the way we look at this, at least romantically, as I know Mr. Wright would have, the sort of the first building on the site was this Monterey, and then maybe it got added to over time, and then eventually a larger hotel got built around it, and that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. We do have this wetland of sorts, which essentially was a little drainage swale that got cut off as a result of the extension of the Garden Street, and so it just sat there as sort of a drainage area. It's become a wetland, and so we have to stay clear of that, and Courtney will explain what she is doing there. You noticed in the minutes, by the way, that there was a request for cypress, and Courtney has placed cypress in this corner, which she'll also show you. But basically, there's sort of two hotels here. There's an extended stay type hotel, and then there's a more conventional, which is being called a lifestyle brand hotel over on this side. I think we've got 130 extended stay and 120 lifestyle. And then the main entrance is really taken off of the point which the specific plan intended, which is why these islands are open between them. This little thing, by the way, is a pork chop, which Public Works staff wants installed so that people do not exit out of here and take a left onto Garden Street. And all of the parking is underground. Another comment, by the way, referring back to your minutes, was the request to maybe rotate some things. We had always had this Monterey rotated the way it is, but we've rotated this portion of the building, which I think helps a lot in terms of views and also mountain views looking back towards the site. For orientation, just to be sure, this is the old Danica House, or what's now Michael K. The Yananali condos, or Villa Del Mar and Metropolis, are here across the street. And then, of course, most of these buildings are the old Calavo warehouse buildings from back in the 60s. So all the parking, not all the parking, most of the parking is underground. There is some parking to the west of this on grade, but you can kind of get a sense of the magnitude of the underground parking. We're not putting any equipment down here, by the way, from a flood standpoint, so there won't be emergency generators or anything like that, but there will be floodgates because we're in the flood zone here. Just quickly, the configuration, you can kind of get a sense here of the common spaces, which are in the gray. And this is first story, second story, and then you can see here how the third story peels back so that the predominant Garden Street elevation is 2 stories. And then we have a roof deck. You can see where that is. That's the crosshatched area, so the roof deck is to basically the south portion of the property nearest the coast. Here's the line. So these are our rendered views, and as Kathy mentioned, putting story poles here is somewhat of a nightmare because it's just a plethora of container boxes and other things. And so we hope that you will all agree that these renderings and even additional ones that you would want to request will help to show the massing. But here you see from the corner of Yananali and Garden that Monterey element. We've got a little courtyard space that's ensconced by stone walls, and then we're keeping the architecture very simple as it extends along Garden there and remains in a 2-story massing. As we go down Garden then, directly opposite that the new entrance. There is a porte cochere. This doesn't show the pork chop in the road, by the way, but that obviously is right here. So we sort of brought in some of the Monterey styling here. And then when we change to 3 stories, we're going with a much more simple, rational, elegant, almost as if this was the resort that was built after the fact. And as we then continue around, a little bit further down Garden, you can see that we have a little tower element, which is up at that roof deck area. So this would be a covered viewing area from up on that roof. The detailing is all exposed rafter tails. We have a little belly band that's a little hard to see. It's continuous around the first floor element. And obviously intend on there being very traditional detailing. This element right here is sort of the library, bar, central common area, which is going to have beautiful views back towards the ocean. Then looking across the railroad tracks here, I think you can get a good sense of the size, bulk, and scale relative to the mountain views. So it's really, it's positioned well to allow that Garden Street corridor to remain. And then we're stepping it back down as we get closer to the railroad tracks, and again, kind of introducing a little bit of the Monterey vernacular on that side. Continuing around, this is the Santa Barbara Street side. It's fairly simple and reflecting of that same vernacular. And then finally, when we're back to Yananali, you can see this is some of the surface parking that's there next to the Michael K. building. This side of the building is long and simple, and we kind of consider this the back of the house, and I think here landscaping will be just critically important, and that's where I want Courtney to go ahead and explain kind of what this looks like, but you can see then completing it back around to that Monterey that would be the dominant piece that is on the corner. So we have our elevations, which right now I won't belabor. I think we can come back to these with questions. This is where you need your set, Mr. House. But there again, that western, you can see that western elevation is a very long, large elevation, but very much in the tradition of older hotels that had sort of the back of house to them. This gives you the basic section above on one that happens at Garden Street, so you have the 2-story then juxtaposed to the 3-story. That dashed line is the 45-foot height limit that we have, so some of the rooftop elements that aren't actual usable space are located up there, and I'm going to give my seat up to Courtney and let her talk about the landscaping.
Thanks, Brian. Courtney Miller with CJMLA. And I can just walk you through the landscape plan. So I guess, did we not include the tree protection? We didn't. So we have a full arborist report. There are a small handful of existing trees that we'll be removing. Mostly, I think just 2 palms, a pepper tree, and then a few other palms off-site. But the majority of the existing trees remain around the edges. So you can see along Garden Street, we have oak trees here. Those will remain. There's an existing public sidewalk within an easement that connects Garden Street to Santa Barbara Street. So that will remain and be protected. Number of palm trees along that, those will remain. And then otherwise, I'll just kind of walk you through the design here. Let's see. Hopefully quickly. So starting at the corner, we have a courtyard here. We're calling it the Cypress Court. This large specimen tree would be our Monterey cypress. I thought that was a great comment, and we love how kind of on the nose that is with the Monterey style of architecture. Moving around the property, we have, oops.
I deleted the file.
Yeah, I just jumped. There we go. We have our, what Brian mentioned, our wetland here. So essentially a ditch that over time supported some native species. There's a small area of juncus here that will be protecting, one oak tree that will also be protecting. Everything else is exotic and invasive, so we will be removing all of that. And we have a full restoration plan that we'll be implementing. Not much grading, just gently, reconfiguring this so that it actually functions as a habitat environment. And then we're working with city staff to develop full monitoring requirements for that area. So the palette in that area is going to be 100% native, pretty different from what you would traditionally see with a commercial hotel property. So moving around, we have our arrival court, some statement palms in some large pots on either side here. We looked very closely at the Potter Hotel for reference in terms of the plant palette and some of the garden areas, and some of our other significant properties around town, just from the same era. So thinking about lots of layered plant material, a series of smaller courtyards and kind of winding paths throughout. So we have a lounge terrace, bar terrace here, lifestyle placida with a little spa, event lawn here. And then moving around, we have a little park along the back, and I think this will work really beautifully with what's being proposed across the street, also one of our projects, just on the other side of Santa Barbara Street. And right now we just have kind of an open lawn and passive uses indicated there, a couple of benches and, new street trees and improved sidewalk. And then moving around the back, we do have a healthy amount of landscape space between the parking and the building. So in particular along this frontage here, we have a lot of opportunity for layered, taller palms and giant bird of paradise and even some canopy trees, which we've indicated there. And I believe, and then we have our pool courtyard in the middle. We'll be raising this whole area up so that we can implement a pool over the basement level. And then we have a series of elevated planters and, again, lots of palms, sort of more tropical but water-wise approach for the plant palette. So if you're familiar with our Marmonte Hotel, similar palette to that. Landscape character images at the bottom. And I believe that's it. So I will turn it back to Brian and look forward to your questions and comments.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, just one comment. Since the last review was a number of years ago, and concept review minutes are usually just valid for a year, we can consider this a new project and everyone can vote
Okay.
and make comments.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Everyone gets to vote. All right. Okay, any other presentation stuff?
Nope, I think.
All good?
we'll
Okay.
open
Oh,
it
you
up
actually had a minute
questions.
left. Might be the first. All right, so we will go to public comment now. Do we want to go to virtual public comment first?
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. So there are a few members of the public joining by Zoom, so I'll start with virtual public comment. If you'd like to speak on this item, please raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak, and I will call on you. All right, so I don't see any hands raised for this item. I'll move to in-person public comment, but seeing no members of the public in attendance, and we haven't received any written correspondence, I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. All right, so back to the commission for questions. Commissioners.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Vice Chair House.
I'm sorry I didn't note the page number, but the elevations that show the, I guess it'd be the south side of the bar restaurant area. Or maybe it was your renderings. Yeah, I think in your renderings that show that view.
Okay, let me go back to that.
There we go. So you have an arched window and you have a window that's not arched that's saying, I want to be arched too.
No, it
What is the
doesn't.
reason that?
Well, the reason is you can see that there's 3 arches that are marching basically
Garden
to the
Street
north,
side.
and then it returns 1 arch, and then that is the backdrop to the bar that is there, and it just.
Could you zoom in actually a little bit?
Is that to say it's not a real window or?
No, it's a real window, it's just, how's that? Just a little bit more?
Yeah.
So it just seemed like an opportunity to not just repeat the arches and have a really beautiful window that is the backdrop to that bar.
That is
So
the-
that is the reasoning.
The backdrop to the bar being.
The bottles are in front of the.
Oh, I
windows.
see. Gotcha. Okay.
Exactly.
So this expensive liquor is getting south sun on it all.
Well, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that, yeah.
It's a 2-story space that'll be open.
Look down there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. We'll make sure
Alright.
the expensive liquor doesn't get the sun.
Okay. That'd be the wine I'd be more concerned about.
All right, other questions? Since we're on this one, is there a reason you didn't add muntins to the arch window?
No,
Okay.
no.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I have one other question.
All right.
Um, That viewing area on the roof, could you show us that again?
In plan,
No, in the renderings, I suppose.
okay. So that, you see one of the trellises that's up on that roof
Right.
there. Then that stair, that one tower that's sticking up there is one of the stair towers that goes to the roof. And
Okay, that's the view I wanted. So what is the plate height on that, if we can call it a plate height?
on this?
Yeah.
On the tower?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, it's probably, I'm guessing it's about 11 feet or
No, I think. It's 11, or 9 feet.
9 feet.
No.
Nine. Okay, so that, the floor is 42 inches down from the top of that railing, that guardrail?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So the property from Yananali, from the intersection of Garden, does it drop toward the tracks?
Well, it's interesting, the property itself is more or less flat. It's like elevation 6, but yes, at the intersection, it rises up to about 12, and then it drops back down Yananali to where the Michael K.,
Yeah.
store is.
And then Mr. Wright's building is across the tracks and down the big,
Oh, they can't, maybe lean forward,
is that better?
maybe.
Or
pull.
Mr. Jesus. I'm just wondering, Mr. Wright's building is across the parking lot,
they're gonna
across the tracks, is that correct?
Well, of course, Mr. Wright is no longer with us.
No, but still.
But the family owns all of those old Calavo
Right, I was just-
warehouses.
You know how tall that building is?
Oh, you mean the one that's on the ocean side of the tracks?
Yes,
I know,
yes.
they don't own that.
I think they built, anyway, I always call it the Wright House, but that's a pretty
Interesting.
tall building.
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 stories.
Yeah.
But I think the 45-foot height limit was still in place when that was built. That was in the late 70s, probably. What do you think, Steve?
Late
That-
late 60s, I think.
You know, the one with the big cantilever?
Behind the old Chart House restaurant.
Yeah.
Another question would be, are you anticipating any wetland problems when you dig the underground basement or the below-grade basement?
Well, that basement is placed precariously right above the water table. So
It
it's
is,
not
yeah.
going to be like the Californian Hotel where they actually did have to de-water because they
That's
were
right,
below
yeah.
that. So hopefully, by being just above the base water level, we're going to be okay.
All right, thank you.
Only Minnie's allowed to park under there.
Mr. Chair,
Vice your house.
do you have to elevate your first floor plate up above a flood plain?
We have
flood
to be
level, so-
above the flood
so
elevation, which
How much higher than the existing grade do you think you are on average?
We're at elevation 13 and a half, and most of the sites at 9 to 10. So we're raising it at 3 and a half feet.
Yeah,
Yep.
but again, at the corner there at Yananali, it actually, the elevation is about 12 and a half.
Yeah.
All right, other questions? All right. Let's see. Oh, I had a question about the tower. Was there a?
This tower?
Yeah, that tower there.
I knew someone was going to comment about that.
With the toothpick legs, that one.
That one, my wife said the same thing.
So where's the inspiration for that coming from?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. I mean, Dave can tell you, we looked at a lot of different options. My inclination was that it be light, because people are going up there, you know, onto the roof, and instead of it being something that was heavy, that it just had a light top. I'm sure it could use a lot more study.
Okay.
But, you know, happy to do that.
All right, and then I had a question on A 002.1.6, that's elevation. And actually, you can go back one, the rendering is actually probably better. The stair, yeah, there it is. So the stair, what was the thought on that? And did you try other things? There's the railing and the sort of the massing of the stair.
Yeah, I think we tried a lot of different things there. Again, I think this is something we've acknowledged, you know, probably is going to still require more study, but we didn't, it's obviously 3 stories there, and we didn't want to necessarily create a lot of mass there, so it seemed like an opportunity to step the building down in that location and have sort of partial open stairs and partially enclosed.
Okay, and then the blank wall on the above the stair or the top, was there a functional reason for that, or is there?
You mean the
yeah.
stone wall, or?
No, the blank plaster wall
On the 3rd floor.
on the 3rd floor at the top
I
of the stair.
believe that is part of the kitchen.
Okay,
Yeah, but it is a room that's there.
okay.
So,
Yeah, it's a guest room.
yeah.
Okay.
And of course, I think there's some code rule as far as, you know, when you have a stair and an opening, there has to be some clearance there. But we could certainly study adding a little window or something like that.
Okay, that was it for my questions. So, any other questions before we go into comments? And so this is, no final appealable actions or project compatibility findings will be required for the project design approval. The project also requires planning commission approval for parking modification, development plan, and coastal development permit. The other 2 parts are whether story poles, whether we want to see story poles, and then you had also mentioned one other thing I thought about, was it project compatibility findings?
Yes.
Now, so that would be commenting on the project compatibility finding types, but not actually making them, or making the findings
Just
as,
commenting on them, because if you're
if we're
ready to
prepared
send this to
to,
planning
or-
commission, we need to have that done prior to planning commission.
Okay. All right.
And Mr. Chair, I just should mention to you, the modification on the parking is sort of I'll call it a subtlety in the code, because technically the extended stay are considered residential units unless they have a very limited kitchen. And so basically, we're asking for a modification so we don't have to park it as a residential unit with 2 parking spaces. And that's in essence what the modification is for.
Yes, and you don't need to comment on the parking modification
Okay.
in this case.
They just only can park historic cars.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so who wants to kick off with some comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Commissioner
I'm
Drury.
going to try to make sure people can hear me because it's so important. I like this project in general. I mean, this is the first time I've seen it. When I read the agenda, I was going, wait a minute, southwest corner. Oh my goodness, it's the old Channel City lumber place, which was in dire need, thank you, of something happening on that piece of property. I think Commissioner House made a comment concerning those 2. I consider those 2 mismatched windows although I do find the idea of a library and a bar intriguing, especially together, I think, yes, I think there's something awkward. I think maybe that the square window needs to have some embellishment or something to make them look like they're part of the same plan. And then the previous screenshot, that staircase seems a little ephemeral on the level going. Yes, it seems like the language is so different from what precedes it when you're climbing from the bottom to the top. And I think that wall above that iron staircase needs something, needs a small accent window, because the rest of it seems to be very, very hotel-like in an appropriate way. And I would support the project as presented with some of those ideas expressed. And I think we're lucky to have our landscape architect back. I mean, we haven't seen each other, none of us seen each other. I don't even see you guys very often. It's probably just as well. But I find the landscape palette to be really attractive. I love the idea of using Monterey cypress with the Monterey architectures. It makes perfect sense. So that's it for now. I'm sure there'll be more. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Who wants to go next?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll
All right,
dive in.
Vice Chair.
I agree with my fellow commissioner. Since we're on page 2.1.6, I had the same concern about that stair. Just too many layers of iron balusters you're looking through, and that just kind of looks cluttered and institutional. And I'm thinking maybe the guardrail at that landing should just be solid stucco wall, and then you've got the iron going down and going up from there. So that's a possibility. On 2.1.3, yeah, the famous mismatch of windows. Yeah. I'm just not seeing the rationale for why that wouldn't be arched. It seems like from what we saw from the interior section, two arched windows side by side would make more sense there as well, and I don't see how that's a detriment to the back of the backdrop to the bar, or some other solution. It just looks like they forgot to put the arch on top of this window. So, if it were another arrangement of windows or something that made sense. And while we're on this sheet, the toothpick columns, it almost seemed like it was a 12-foot plate or something. It just seemed like the roof was stretched up too high. But maybe once again, that guardrail needs to be a solid guardrail, because I don't see that it serves much point to be looking down. And I think that would shorten the effective length, visual length of the columns, and maybe read better. I appreciate your storyline of the original building and then the hotel that was built afterwards. I like to have a story like that in mind, and I think it's been successful. I'm glad you brought it up, because I otherwise was going to bring it up, and I think you've done a successful job in what we see from Garden Street, but from Santa Barbara Street, my concern is it is a very long and institutional looking elevation. However, with the amount of landscaping you're proposing, and that it's not a view, that my impression is it's not a view you're going to get the whole long shot from very many places, so it may be okay. But while we're on this page, I'll comment on that trellis on the roof deck there. It just looks odd, and I think it just needs to be smaller so there isn't that odd cantilever over the tile. It's hard to know from this vantage point what the relative configuration of those things is, but I think it just shouldn't be so prominent. And in general, I think it is a hotel and there is a repetition to elements, but I think that anywhere you can add a little bit more whimsy or poetry, play with some window sizes or a grouping of windows so it kind of breaks it up a little bit and makes you wonder, I wonder what's behind there, or why is that different? You know, just you're furthering that idea of a story behind it. So I think those are all my comments.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
you.
may I break in?
Yes, Commissioner Drew.
I have a question. So how deep set are these windows?
Well, they need to be set back. I mean, we're assuming that we're gonna have, minimum 6-inch walls, and we're gonna move the windows all the way back for the typical window. But we've also talked about, as the windows get bigger, there needs to be more recess. So those arches, for instance, there we're gonna need a 12-inch or more recess. And, I'm assuming that we'll go through all of that detailing when we're past planning commission with you all.
Thank you.
And what kind of windows are they?
Well, they are going to be aluminum windows. At this point, I think we're assuming that
Yes.
they're aluminum clad
Clad wood.
Wood interior,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, because, I'm working on a project right now, and it seems like you don't have much opportunity to set those windows back in. They come with a jamb that is matched to the depth of the wall framing. So, but I suppose there's a way to use the 4-inch depth and set it back in, but,
Yeah.
Yeah, set a 2x4 inside
Yeah.
to mount it to.
But yeah, there needs to be that sort of minimum of 4 inches for the average window.
right,
And then
exactly.
the public spaces are all 18-inch walls, double walls. So
Okay.
you'll get 12 inches recess. It
Okay.
may not
And
be
that's another
reading.
way to kind of break up that long Santa Barbara facade. If there are some areas that had a deeper recess, and then you get a different shadow character on it, and that might help.
All right.
Yep, and
Other
there is a
comments?
belly band around most of the lifestyle that adds another 2 inches. So that'll increase the depth.
Yeah, it's a little hard to
windows.
see on the rendering, but we do have this continuous belly band all the way around the building that goes up to the sill of the second floor
Right.
So the
windows.
whole first floor is a little thicker.
Exactly.
Okay. Commissioner Jordan?
Comments. I was very impressed with the landscape plan. And just a suggestion, but if you're going to the effort of taking out the invasive plants and restoring the wetland, I would encourage you to think about a didactic panel of some sort that would explain to visitors, in fact, what they were looking at. I share the concern of my fellow commissioners about what we're calling those mismatched windows, and I'm wondering if something to consider is if instead of adding additional windows or changing the shape, if it can be handled through surface articulation, such as blind arches, skimming back the wall, or adding a pier to separate.
And that was for which, the part, the arched bar?
What we're calling the mismatched windows.
We're going to name the room the mismatch room.
Nature trail, how about a nature trail area? Maybe you can't do that.
No, but I do think I applaud that effort, and I also think it's worth sharing some information with visitors.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Butler.
I think the challenge is that this is a commercial property, it's a hotel, right? And so as we look at these, we're trying to sort of merge a residential sort of feel or a design feel into a commercial property. So that's the first challenge. Most of my thoughts have already been addressed. The tower in the front could certainly be, I would encourage other approaches to that. It does look like it sort of landed there. Maybe it just, so not that a rooftop viewing space might have some appeal, but, so that was one thought. Also the trellis, as we've already discussed, obtrudes out, and I know we'll have more detail to follow, but what the really footprint of that is, whether it extrudes over or protrudes over the edge of the building, et cetera. I just thought that, and this is an initial observation, but the Monterey style, and I'm very familiar with it, almost has a little barracks-like, which is sort of Monterey style. I recognize that. So on that one side of the building, it looks a little bit like that. I don't know if there's a way to approach that a little more warmly. And then any other design details, there's an enormous amount of white space, white walls. You mentioned the belly band, but some other way to warm this up in order to make it either through some wall treatments or other ways. And I know we haven't gotten to the level of lighting and all of that, and that'll come in the future. So, but anyway, those are my, overall, it's a very strong plan, and we'll see where it goes.
All right. All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner
Just a
Ray.
point of reference, that trellis that has been in, we've been talking about, is that the far left? That the same
No,
trellis?
no, that's a different trellis. We can show you on the roof
So
plan.
there it is on the.
Yeah, it's up on the roof
Oops,
plan.
there it is.
You wanna-
So
It lines
it's,
up with
it's
the-
right
All
there.
All right, thank you.
And I'll just tack on a comment to that trellis, because I was going to tack it on anyways in the summaries. I do think that both the trellises, but especially the one that was the trellis of question, they don't seem to relate as much. Like that one relates a little bit more to the roof, because the roof shape kind of reinforces it. But they both are they're strong sort of tack-on pieces, and they're not integrated into the architecture yet. And because they're wood and they're bigger members, they stand out even more. So I think that's the part of the challenge, is getting rooftop things to look good with, especially when you have sloping roofs that are sloping back and implying like there's an internal courtyard or something, and then it runs into this trellis, and your eye kind of, it has multiple things going on there. So I think however your solutions are, whether, and I know before in other projects you've pulled them back from the major views or things like that as a way of solving it, or it might be different materials, but that definitely I think needs to be studied on all the wood trellises that are up on the roof. The ones down on the ground seem to have their right place. So, okay, other, Commissioner Woolley, did you have any other comments?
No, I'm generally supportive. I liked the project when it was in front of us the first time, and I'm certainly supportive of this and agree with comments that were made by other commissioners. I want to see how your implementation of solar panels will affect this building as it comes forward.
We're
All
showing
right.
them on the roof plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to point those out?
Yeah.
Actually?
Can't remember that area.
But you can see that we do have more roof area to implement more solar panels, should we need to. I think the one thing we were trying to keep this roof empty, just because the third story is looking over that. And really, the thing you realize with this site is the extraordinary mountain views. You know, that's the real draw of the roof deck, really, is more the mountains than the ocean.
Or the solar panels.
Well, if you put a giant like steel structure and then put the solar panels on top.
Because you have significant amount of roof on the third floor, it looks like you can scatter those solar panels all over the place so that they pretty much disappear.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Any other comments that want to be added? I would say the only other comment I would add would be the wall thickness. For a building of this size, and everything's generally speaking 2 stories and up, so I would say that probably a minimum wall thickness of 8 inches probably makes sense.
More like an adobe wall.
Yeah, and then obviously the three-story, you're going to want more. And I like your comment about the larger openings having even larger. That makes sense. But that would be, I'd say, also would be want to get integrated into it. All right, so I'll try to summarize the comments so far. Comment number 1 is the Commission is very supportive of the project, likes it a lot, thinks it has developed well. The windows on the bar and arch window on, let's give a page number if we could. There we go. A 2.1.3 needs to be restudied with potentially either arching the bar window or a suggestion was made of a blind window or some other solution as it looks awkward. Next comment is a staircase on A 2.1.6. Needs more study, potentially looking at a plaster wall for portions of it. Maybe the landing or other portions, but right now the two is too busy with the iron, with all the iron pickets. And as well as the wall on that same, above the stair, as a big blank wall, needs other articulation, perhaps a small window or some other form of articulation. Let's see, the landscape design is very beautiful. It's attractive and impressive, and a suggestion to have a didactic panel explaining the difference in the landscape and why it's why the sorry, I did not take a note of what's habitat. Yeah, the verbiage, the landscape verbiage, right? Yeah, the habitat and why it is what it is and where it is. On 2.1.3, the tower design needs to be adjusted. The columns are too slender and don't feel strong enough for support. So just to restudy the tower, the upper portion of the tower especially. All right, the Monterey component of the design, the story behind the one portion of the building, is very successful and appreciated. On A 2.1.5, the wood trellis, as well as the other, as the main example, but the other wood trellis as well that's up on the roof deck, appears awkward and disconnected from the rest of the roof structure. So those need to be restudied as to either their placement or their materials or design to get it to feel more integrated with the building. On the same page, A2.1.5, the openings are too repetitive and too institutional looking.
Which
So-
sheet? This one?
Yeah, it was this one, and then there was another one too. We'll call out multiple ones, but elevations in general, the repetitive elevations especially, to look at ways of either breaking it up more or so that they don't look as institutional and repetitive of elements, the windows, treatments, or other ways. And one suggestion was of color and warming them up more because there's so much white plaster here on this. It was such a large building. All right, wall thickness for all public-facing walls should be a minimum of 8-inch thick, with windows set back. And then I think that was it for my comments. Any other comments to add to that?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair House.
Story poles.
Oh, story poles. Yes, good question.
I, for one, can support not having story poles. It's not a tall building where we're looking at it in the context of existing surrounding buildings. I think I have a clear picture of what the impact of this development is going to be, so I don't see the point of story poles for it.
All right, other commissioners?
I agree with that.
Drury?
I would support that as well. I also have a question, if that's okay.
Okay, let's finish off this one first real fast, and then I'll come back to you for a question. Commissioner Dooley?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Commissioner Butler? Okay, and I am as well, so that looks like it's unanimous for no story poles. All right,
So my question is simply access. There's that funny little, what did you call it, a pork chop? So if they're coming off of Cabrillo Boulevard, how are they going to get into the hotel?
So let me go to the site plan. So if they're coming off Cabrillo, they're just going to take
So then they can turn depending on traffic.
They'll just take a right-hand in. So most of the traffic is going to be from the freeway coming in, or you'll be able to take a turn from Cabrillo in, but you can't exit the hotel and go back towards the freeway.
So how would they do that? Would they have to go
Well,
down
that's one reason why we have this ramp and the exit out of the garage here, so that way people can go back out to Yananali and then get in the left-hand turn lane to get on the freeway.
Thank you.
It's more like a cutlet, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's changed.
Wasn't my name, yeah.
I think some weird-looking pork chops.
It's two left-hand turns created.
There we go. All right. Any other comments to add to those comments? And then I guess the question is whether we make project compatibility findings, or are we making the findings, or are we making comments on the findings? That's, okay. And if anyone wants to, so the first question is, any more comments to add to that list? All good? All right, so the second part is, does someone want to make project compatibility findings, commenting, using?
Well, I always shy away from this, but.
We don't even have it on the wall to cheat. Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
So, consistency with design guidelines, I think this is entirely consistent with our design guidelines. And it is also compatible with the architectural character of the city. It's kind of establishing the character of the neighborhood, but that's appropriate. The size, mass, bulk, height, and scale are handled well because of the large footprint of the project. Next page. Sensitivity to adjacent landmarks and historic resources. I don't know how many are in this immediate vicinity, but it doesn't appear it would have any impact on them. Public views of the ocean and mountains. It doesn't seem like it's in the way of any major view corridors, so I'm not concerned about that. And it's excellent open space and landscaping in the project.
All right. And if you get a drink at the Ugly Window Bar and go upstairs, you can get a view of the mountain.
The mismatch bar.
It's okay. It's what I do. We put it in there just so.
That's right. Well
Will
done.
they find it? Will they find it?
Dave said, let's put an arch there. I said, no, let's put a stupid mismatched window.
They'll go after that. All right. So seems like we got all the project compatibility findings commented on. And is there anything else that needs comment on?
Just whether it's continued to the planning commission or you want to see it back here again.
Yes, there's a motion would be with those comments to continue it to the planning commission.
Second.
Ooh, that was a fast round. Good job, Commissioner Butler. He got it, I think.
Got it.
Yeah, he's,
And there will be lots of opportunity for you guys to finesse this after we're finally through.
Oh,
the
we know.
commission.
Oh, we look forward to that.
That's
all
the
right.
good part.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Yes, thank you. So I'll start with Commissioner Butler,
Yes?
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Thank
All
you
right.
so
Great.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, we are on to item 3. So this is a one-time pre-application consultation. This is for 1815 State Street. The project site is located within El Pueblo Viejo. A conceptual review of a new 16-unit, 4-story residential development under the city's residential density bonus program. The project would remodel the existing commercial building fronting State Street, demolish the existing rear commercial building, convert the front building to 4 residential units, and attach a new 12-unit residential building and a new 16-space parking stacker. The site plan will accommodate residential open yard, 2 surface parking lots, loading space, trash enclosure, and landscaping. No final appealable action will take place at this hearing. Project compatibility findings would be required for project design approval. All right, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so with our new system, we'll just kind of walk through. So yeah, you'll have control of it to walk through the presentation. We'll be able to see it on the screens.
And Mr. Chair, can I just interrupt really
Yes.
quick? So I just want to clarify again, this project is here for a one-time pre-application consultation. So we're just looking for comments on the design. There's no specific motion, or you're not making any specific findings today.
Okay, great. Thank you. And this has not been, this has not gone through planning as a
PRT.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So, and then, so if you could, you'll have 15 minutes, for your
Thank you.
presentation.
My name's Deddy Pikert. I'm a principal with RM Design Group and the architect for the project. I've got a couple of other people here as well. I want to introduce the owners of the property, Chris Van Boglen and, I'm sorry? David. I'm sorry. I knew I was going to screw that up. And David Chase, they're locals who own the property and have a construction company. And I wanted to ask Chris, I believe, to make a couple of introductory comments, just so you kind of get to know who the people are. And before you do that, I also want to introduce the project manager and architect, Katie Moses, and then Tony Tomasello is also going to make some comments on the overall planning picture of context of the project. So, you want to come up?
All right.
Hi, actually, I'm David Chase, and we're a construction company. We've been in business since 2001, local company. Currently, our office is at that property address, which we'll be moving once we do this. We do residential, primarily remodel, renovation, addition, new construction, a little bit of commercial TI. Chris joined us about 6 years ago, so we expanded our offering to a lot of exterior construction, pool construction. He has a general engineering license and pool license, and so, yeah, we're really excited about this project. This will be kind of our first full-scale development property. We've done a couple smaller ones before. In fact, we bought a couple of Dario Pini projects and properties and renovated them and worked with the city to rehabilitate those and take care of all the zoning violations and turn them into successful investment properties. So this is sort of our next step, and we're excited about it.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. And we do plan to hold this one, turn them into apartment complexes and hold the property. Thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Tony Tomasello, I'm a principal planner here with RRM. Just to kind of give a general overview of the project. So the site, located at 1815 State Street, is an existing commercial building that's currently there on the site. The project would be, as well as, surface parking in the rear of the property. I don't know if we can go to the site plan there. Katie. Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. Perfect. So the existing commercial structure fronts on State, as well as an existing building sort of just behind it that's also used as commercial use, and then the surface parking toward the rear. There's existing easements that connect some of the existing or adjacent properties back there. The proposed project would be to demolish the existing sort of more residential looking building there and construct 16 total units. It's in the city's AUD medium high density zone, and we anticipate utilizing a combination of state density bonus law and the city's density bonus program to achieve the 16 units. It's a little bit more than is currently allowed under that 27 units an acre in the medium high density AUD zone. So there'd be additional affordable units in order to be granted the opportunity to develop those 16 units. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to Deddy and Katie to talk about the design. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Tony. Let's stay on this page, but just show some of the photographs of the existing. You pull it out a little bit there. So here you can see on the lower left-hand side there, you can see the existing building, which we are proposing to enhance with some additional refinements, et cetera. And then, of course, there's buildings in the neighborhood that are commercial buildings immediately adjacent. In fact, my dentist is in the building immediately next door. And in the upper right-hand corner, you see the parking lot and the driveway, part of the driveway easement that leads to the parking lots behind some of the other commercial buildings there. And if you, and you can also see that existing kind of craftsman bungalow that's being used as a commercial office building right now, which will be removed. If you want to come back to these, we can always come back later. So let's go back to the site plan and just kind of walk through that. So here you see the site plan, and on the right-hand side where it says one-bedroom units, and there's two of those side by side, that's the commercial building, which will be remodeled into 4 one-bedroom apartments, 2 on the ground floor and 2 on the second floor. And the front entrance will be illuminated because it's actually elevated above the sidewalk and it's not really accessible. So the new entrances will be from the rear, and you can see the outline of a stair that will lead up to the second story above the ground level to provide access to the upper level units. And then as you start to move towards the left there, you'll see there are 3 one-bedroom unit footprints there, and the first pair is accessed. They're kind of split apart, which provides for some landscaping that we can kind of put into the gap between the two, and that stair will serve the units above, 2 levels up above to the 3rd story. And those units are just stacked one above the other. On the ground level, you have a little outdoor private patio, and then you have private balconies at the upper levels for those units. And a similar design we have on the other side. That pair of units is also similarly accessed by that stair that divides the 2 pods, so to speak. The one difference here is that the 2 one-bedroom units on the 3rd floor, those units become 2-bedroom units. We'll see that in the building floor plans shortly. They become 2-bedroom townhomes. The upper level of the townhomes, the bedroom level, will be at a 4th floor, but the access will be from the 3rd floor. And then to the left, you see our parking arrangement that really makes the development of this site with all of the open space that we have possible is the Puzzle Park parking stacker, which is 4 levels high and 5 wide. And on the very end, we have an open space that can be used as a loading zone, et cetera. And of course, we have the 2 handicap parking spaces at the ground level there in the site. I think the thing that really stands out about how this has kind of come together is that for a project on a relatively small site, 12,000 square feet, we have a substantial amount of both private open space and common open space, as you can see there, that you don't usually see that amount of on-grade open space available to the residents. One other thing I'll point out is that there is an alley, like a driveway alley between, if you point over to the right-hand side there, yes, that exists now, and cars sometimes use that. It's fairly narrow, but we're going to retain that as a kind of a landscape space. It'll be privatized, so to speak, by putting a wrought iron gate right along with, you can see that cursor there is now, but it'll be an access point for pedestrians entering the project from State Street. Next slide. And here you see the next 2 levels of the building, and they're very similar to one another. Car stacker on the left, and then the 2-bedroom units next to it, 1-bedroom units stacked above. And if we go to the next level, you see on the 3rd floor, you see the townhomes in the middle, where it says unit 303, 302, and then up above that, you can see the bedroom level, which is kind of comes up above the 3-story building with for the upper level of the townhomes there. And again, in each of these slides, you saw that the individual units have their own private open space as well as the common open space on the ground. And then that's just the roof plan. Not a lot of information there, but you can see how it kind of fits together. So here we see the front elevation of the existing commercial building. And again, as I mentioned, we'll be closing off the existing front entrance as we divide the 2 ground level and the 2 upper level, or the upper level, into the 2 units at each level. And we're kind of doing a decorative tile base at the front there. And you can see the tile canopies remain. So I think it does a nice job of sort of enhancing that facade, updating it a little bit from what it was originally. And then the main elevation inside the property here, you can see how the units are stacked, how the balconies are configured around the gaps, which are the stairs that lead to the upper levels for those units. And we've incorporated two-piece mission tile, tried to kind of capture the kind of Spanish Mediterranean style, but with a kind of a more contemporary flavor, I would say. You can see that there is a grade in the site, and we drop, there's a drop that takes place right in the middle of the project there. We can see we're at the roof line where the windows are kind of offset as the units drop down towards the west end of the site. And then at the extreme left, you see the parking stacker. Again, we're introducing a little hanging canopy there and some openings into the upper areas of the parking structure. Let's go to the next slide. That's the upper elevation there. Is the rear elevation is the end of the parking stacking machine. And then the elevation below shows the back of the property, which is built to the property line. And you can kind of see faintly, and I think I'm going to ask Katie to outline that a little bit. That box represents an existing commercial building that is right up against that property line. You can kind of see how it impacts. So you don't really read the entirety of that kind of more or less blank elevation. We are able to show some relief there at the parking structure by recessing those openings and putting some kind of tile, decorative tile in there, something like that. But there won't be any opportunity for planting along that edge. But where there's no building is a parking lot, and there is landscaping along that edge of the existing parking lot. Next slide. And then these are the unit type C, one-bedroom flats that are incorporated into the existing commercial building. And the one on the right is the upper level flat. It's just an example. They're all the same. And then these are all the basic floor plans, and in this exhibit show the open space there. So the next slide just shows you some three-dimensional views of the property. Maybe you could kind of zone in on, yeah, this shows the existing commercial building at State Street, and then the proposed building behind, and then you can see where it steps up to that fourth floor right there, and then you can kind of also see where it steps back down towards the back of the site. Let's go to slide that around to some of the other views. And that's a view of the open space that you saw in the site plan. Kind of just gives you a feel for that. And then this is coming off the parking lot. On the right is a trash enclosure, and on the left is the private balcony of the ground level unit there with the upper balcony stacked up above. And then this is kind of more a three-dimensional view from the back. In the very front foreground is the driveway easement that kind of comes around the front of that parking garage and then wraps around to the parking lot in behind. And you can see the two handicap spaces just in front of the trash enclosure there. So that's pretty much it, right? Did I leave anything out? I think that covers it, and I'm happy to answer questions. I was going to say something. I mean, just in closing, I guess, we're excited about the project, and I think our excitement really extends from the two partners who own the property, who really want to provide some housing and take advantage of an infill lot that has provides the opportunity to really do some housing. And there's going to be a couple of low-income housing units in it, and a couple of, I assume, some moderate income housing. That exact program is still, being determined as we go forward. But I think it really, provides kind of a unique opportunity to see a project at that density with, a really nice ground level open space that provides for great landscaping on the ground, so large trees can grow there, et cetera. And I think it'll be a great addition to that neighborhood there.
All right.
That's it.
Complete your presentation? All right. Okay, so let's go to public comment now. Any not online, but whatever, virtual public comment?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. So I'll start with virtual public comment, and then we'll move to in-person. So if any member of the public joining by Zoom would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak, and I will call on you. All right, so I don't see any hands raised via Zoom for this item, so I'll move to in-person public comment. I do have one request to speak from Fred Sweeney, so Mr. Sweeney, please come up to the podium. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. Got something to pass out. You graduated. We got microphones and
We have it all. We have
you have a sign. You have a modesty skirt. It's a big deal.
We all wear Speedos now.
Yeah. So we're back in person. Anyway, I want to go through my 2 minutes very quickly. I really don't have a lot of comments about the application that's before you. I think it'll be just fine. Your words of wisdom will hone it as it moves forward. What I'm here about is the Upper East. The Upper East neighborhood is directly across the street. As you know, the ongoing motel project that's been under construction for years, and the 76 gas station is directly across. And the document I'm passing out is the issue that we're concerned as AUDs start up this boulevard towards Mission Street. This will be the second newer project developed along that stretch between Arriaga and Mission. And so we're terribly concerned about the impact of size, scale, and bulk. And I know Chair Grumbine has looked at downtown where we'll have a canyon effect if downtown is completely built out with additional higher buildings. But if we do that on this part of Upper State Street, that's going to have effect on the immediate nature of the 1- and 2-story residential areas immediately behind these things. So you need to think about the shade side of State Street and the sun side of State Street. This project is probably a good solution for the sun side of State Street, or the shade side of State Street, I should say. So I think, how they've approached it is probably a good example of how to do that. But you need to think about what happens on the other side when the next AUD project comes. On this study I did on Islay, Pedregosa, State, and Anacapa Street, because this kind of scale and bulk is going to have a big effect as we move up State Street. So thank you so much.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. So I don't have any more requests to speak, and we did not receive any written correspondence, so I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right. Thank you. And thank you to the public speaker who also gave us a nice handout. So for taking the time to do that. All right. So back to the commission for questions. Any questions about this project?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Butler.
So can you talk a little bit about the tile work? You have a specific sort of approach. I know this is early stage, et cetera. But you were talking about the front unit facing State Street. In your initial concepts, you've used almost like a checkerboard pattern. Can you talk a little bit more about what you were thinking about using tile and a tile works frontage?
If you can zoom in a little bit more too, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just playing with trying to kind of enhance that facade, create a little more delight there than what exists now. It's a little bit tired. And our idea here was that this might be a nice effect, and I like it personally, but, you know, we're open to other ideas, certainly. So I'm not sure that I have much more to share about it other than, you know, we want to enhance the facade. We're going to have the little balconies and the tile and.
And that's the only location in this
Where
particular
we'd use
case that
that
you
tile.
incorporate the
Yes.
designed element here, correct?
And I think it made sense also to kind of, you know, continue to have a sort of a commercial flavor to that building, even though it'll be all residential. In other words, there won't be any commercial in there, but it still kind of fits with the commercial character of the other buildings on the street neighboring it.
Thank you. All right. Other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury?
Yes, so this Isley is the street going down on, to the east.
Yeah.
To the east. And this is a statement, but it's leading to a question, if that's.
Sure. We'll blur it for you.
Right. But it's sort of a mishmash architecturally. There's a couple of old apartment buildings fronting Isley, West Isley Street.
No, yeah,
Is
you
that
can go
correct?
to
Yeah, there's a variety of different
Yeah,
buildings on
and there's
that.
some bungalows and so on. What is the plan for the bungalow that exists?
It'll be removed.
Demolished or removed?
Demolished, yeah.
Demolished is a terrible word for the
Sorry, I didn't
Historic
wanna use
Landmarks
that
Commission,
word.
especially when you say
It'll be
Craftsman
removed and
Bungalow.
digested somehow.
Any opportunities to move it?
Well, we haven't explored that. I don't know whether David or Chris have given that any thought. You know, it's older, it's not in the greatest of shape. It's habitable,
That
but.
could apply to us.
Right, I was going to say, certainly applies to me.
Yeah. And actually,
I can still move a little bit, you know?
Sort of a tied-on question to that. So has this been analyzed at all historically, the bungalow?
No. Oh, I'm sorry. So the city historian, I guess, looked at it and determined that in the PRT report. right?
Okay. And then when was the front building, as a tied-on question, when was the front building built?
I don't know.
State Street.
1972 is what we've heard.
Okay. All right. All right. I'll keep going the questions. That's,
Mr. Chair, I have a question. It seems that the parking stacker is critical to this project, and we're seeing more and more projects come in with those. Are there any parking stackers in town?
Yes. There's one at, I forgot the exact address, on Can Perdido that we designed originally, actually, and obtained the approvals. And another architect became the architect of record, but it's very similar to that, as a matter of fact. At just Can Perdido at Milpas there, that new project.
all right. Other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair House.
Well, say if we go to the elevation of the garage. What is that long gray frame around the opening? What is that representing?
I think the idea was to create kind of a plaster frame around the opening, but it's really not critical or intrinsic to the design. Could just be.
Yeah, I mean, since it wasn't white plaster like the rest of it, I wasn't sure if it was an exposed concrete beam or what it was, but and it's quite a long span, so
Yeah,
I'll probably
it will
have
be
something
some
like
kind
that
of
in
beam,
there. And could we go to the first floor plan at the street? Because there are those columns on either side of the front elevation, and I'm wondering. Yeah.
Are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah,
I'm
go
just trying
ahead.
to understand them a little better. I mean,
They're not really so much
critical to the floor
columns.
plan or anything. They're
You know, that's how the existing building is kind of set
Right,
back
yeah,
a
I
little bit
can
from the
see that.
sidewalk.
And then the other question I have is, we can see on this floor plan that the center steps back in further, but the tile wainscot on the elevation doesn't seem to have any representation of it stepping back in. So, and in fact, it seems to have wood columns framing that. So I'm wondering if that's just a drawing error or what your intent was there.
Well, there's.
If we go back to the front
Maybe you can
elevation.
explain that better than I can, but the idea is that there is that recess where there's some planters there. And so the two columns, as you described them, on the ends, the plane in the middle is recessed back from those columns that come right out to the property line. And so that wainscot, tile wainscot effectively goes back to that recessed plane. And then there's another plane behind that, which is where the entrance was, and that's going to be like
So does that
balconies.
green represent a planter?
Yeah.
Okay.
And since we're on this, a question regarding the existing, can you take a, do a photo of the existing that we can take a look at? I'm just trying to understand what's new, what's.
Yeah.
Right now that
There's
is,
a little hedge there.
and then is doors opening
Yeah,
off of that?
in the middle of it is the existing entrance into the commercial building.
Gotcha.
And the floor is elevated, I think, by 2 or 3 steps there.
Okay.
That's the alley down on the left.
Yes,
You're going to close off.
which we're going to landscape and close off with a wrought iron gate.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so I was just noticing you've got kind of a mansard roof, but on your elevations, that plane just goes straight up in stucco.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe they can donate that to Taco Bell.
Yeah.
All right. Other questions?
Chair Grumline.
Yes.
Are there trees in the back that are on your property or on this site that are being removed, or are those the neighbor's site?
Let's see if we can see that on the,
It's not super clear.
there's some trees that are in that parking lot. We can see those. And then I think there are a couple of trees also on your parking lot.
I think there's just 2 trees there that are on our side, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what the term is exactly. That's probably the best view.
Yeah.
Are those the neighbors?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that one on the right is definitely on ours.
That hedge is on actually on the other property.
Okay. And then those 2 one-bedroom units at the sidewalk, do those have any outdoor space, or are those just?
The
They have the-
townhome ones? Sorry.
Yeah, if you go.
Oh, the commercial.
Oh, are they going to be commercial, or are they going to residential?
No, they'll be resident,
Okay.
yeah, but they don't really have any outdoor space other than a little kind of balcony on the upper level there.
Okay. That's it for me.
Great. Anything else? All right. Other questions? Can you go to the? I have a few. Can you go to the perspective renderings of sort of the aerial from the back? Maybe. Yeah, actually, that left. That one's a good one. The bottom left to zoom in on. Okay. So. So first question about the parking stacker situation. Is there potential for having any vertical columns or anything else as part of dividing up that big long span? Or how does it work that?
It's pretty tight. The parking stackers themselves are, they're independent effectively of the structure. They sit inside there. They're anchored, et cetera, but they're not loaded against the structure per se. I'll explore that. It's pretty tight, the tolerances, but if we can squeeze a little bit of additional space, we can maybe add a couple of columns in there.
Okay. And then the metal awning, was there a reason for the length of it or not breaking it up or other? It's pretty both horizontal and pretty metal.
Yeah.
Both
correct.
So, with thoughts or inspiration or, yeah, why such the length and unbroken and the thought of going metal or what? And I mean, I'm sure the cars like a little shade, but what was the sort of design impetus for it?
I think part of it was, to break up the height of the building a little bit, taking a strong horizontal line like that across. It does have a little bit of a contemporary flavor to it, I guess. The reason for the length is simply trying to capture the full length of the parking garage. But if we were able to introduce a couple of columns, then maybe that could be broken up in some way.
Okay. And then now looking over at and it's a sort of combo question, and that I think the other view might help as well. But from this view, one of the parts of this question is sort of that vertical, like almost three-story vertical opening of the plaster. Those two openings, actually. What are the thoughts on that? And then looking at another view where you can see the roof kind of overlapping, and maybe it's I'm not sure which view it is. Maybe this view. Yeah, this view actually shows it. Kind of so it seems like you've taken two forms, two sort of gable forms of tile roof, and sort of inserted them in a overlapping, almost abstract way. What was the thinking on those two kind of elements inserted in the plaster boxes? Do you know what I'm trying to explain or trying to ask?
Well, there may
the
be
thinking behind
parts to your
yeah.
question. One is you have a tall vertical opening in that split between the two parts of the building, and that happens in each pair there. Could that, basically those are the private balconies, and they also provide the entrance into the unit. So you come up that stair and it returns back up to that balcony level, and then you split off to go to one side or the other to access the units there. And there's a horizontal element that goes across there, but it's set back from the outer face of that opening. So you can't really, you don't see that horizontal element. Could we emphasize something to break up the tall height by pushing that out more to the surface or close to the surface? That might be one way to kind of, maybe especially at the third level or something, to kind of modulate the height of that a little bit. And then your question about how the roof spans across both the center access opening and stair, and across to the balconies.
The two plaster more boxy buildings, and then you've got the Spanish tile roof, and how it now is sort of, it's almost like if you imagine it being a coherent whole, as if it sort of turned like a ghost and it was able to like set within the two buildings. And I'm just wondering what the design motive or the reason or the practical motive for doing that kind of move was.
Well, first of all, there's the little bit of a challenge there is that we've got the middle part of the building, the pair of townhomes that extend up to the fourth floor. So the relationship is, kind of interrupted by what would be a very simple roof spanning across. Is that what you're getting at?
Just as a form, as a form, you've got the tile roof as a gable form that's been sort of inserted in between as a sort of an. And I'm just trying to understand both any practical purposes of it or the aesthetic moves of it.
Well, again, I may not be understanding it entirely, but it comes up and then it folds back down the other side over the stair to provide cover over the stair. And then beyond that point is just an open area that will have a tree planted in it in between the buildings. The idea is that there's going to be that landscape space in there. So we definitely want to cover the stair as well as the balcony portion of it.
Okay, now that makes sense in terms of the practical side. Okay, that was it for my questions. Any other
Mr.
questions?
Chair?
Yeah, Vice Chair House.
See, I forgot what I was going to say. Well, I know I wanted to ask back on the garage, the left side elevation that you, back a slide or two or something, wherever it was. Yeah, so you had a more perspective one, but this will suffice. On the opposite side of the garage, it seemed like you had something that looked like louvered vents represented. What am I seeing on this side? Are those windows, or are those also vents?
Those could be just openings.
Openings.
Yeah,
okay.
they don't necessarily have to be windows.
Okay.
That one, you know, both the front and this end view, they're not right on the property line, so we're not constrained with respect to,
Okay.
you know, fire code considerations. So those can be just openings. You could actually see the cars through them. That's probably as far as we've gotten on thinking that through. There could be windows, too.
Yeah, because right now there's a shadow cast on that surface, so it was ambiguous what they were. Well, until I think of my other question, that's it for now.
Other questions? All right. In that case, let's roll into comments. Who wants to kick off? Commissioner Uli?
I don't have any particular comments. I think it is an excellent idea for a project, and I think it's supportable, but the detailing will be important, I believe.
All right. Commissioner Drury?
Mr. Chair, thank you. I think you've done a great job simplifying the State Street elevation. That was a building that didn't know quite what it was for many years. Now it's at least some sort of a design element that's clear. I would like to see the same clarity on the east elevation, which I think is what we're looking at here, right? That's along Isley Street, parallel to Isley Street.
Yeah, or south.
I think I brought up those two apartment buildings down the block a ways because I think that there are some clues into the simplicity of how they're presented, how their facade presents itself. I think this looks to me to be a little overdone. I think it could be simplified, but it seems to fit, especially as this is going downhill. It's going to fit the neighborhood better than something on the level. So I would somewhat support the project as presented, but I'd like to see a bit of simplification on that elevation. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair House.
My question was going to be, what is the distance between the third and fourth floor elements?
The distance between, you mean, what's-
Where you have the tile roof spanning over the stair and stuff, right there where you're pointing. The distance between those building elements.
Unfortunately, I can't use my scale on there.
If we only had printed drawings.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it's probably about maybe 15 feet approximately.
I'm not sure if, the width, the horizontal dimension
That
between.
space between the
Yeah,
two
yeah,
balconies.
between the two
yeah.
buildings.
Yeah,
So you think it might be 15 feet or something?
yeah.
Okay. And then what are the plate heights?
The plate heights are 9 feet.
9 feet, okay. All right. My comments would be that, well, first of all, I
And
did
Mr.
not make-
Pardon me, yeah, can you use your microphone?
Okay, I did not make it by the site, but from the drawings, I was very concerned about the height of this. Your illustration that showed the adjacent building and the relationship of the height of the four-story element and the adjacent building kind of allayed my concerns somewhat, but I will withhold more comment on the height of the building until until the next review and I've had a chance to go see it in person. I think the building has an identity crisis, and it's got lots of different things from different types of architecture. It's got that broad steel canopy over the parking garage. It's got some other perhaps steel eyebrows over the fourth floor windows. Then it's got tile elements. Then it's got awnings. There's just a lot going on, and I think that it's a mistake to be taking it in a direction you would categorize as contemporary And then it's got that token little chimney-like thing, finial on that one corner. But I want to comment on the front elevation, if we could go back to that. I think there are just way too many things crammed in there, and they're just so crammed tightly together. And you've got the windows with the tile roof over them with the iron brackets, and then right next to that is a wood column, and there's just no breathing room, and there are too many disparate design elements. So I think that needs to be greatly simplified, and I think also such a lively tile band is too distracting. I don't know how best to put it, but I would rather see a break in the middle of that. I understand I mean, ideally those would be entrances in it, so it's got a public connection to it, but I would understand being residences that you wouldn't necessarily want those to be entrances right there. But I think that if you had a break between and you had a planter there that was only 12 inches above grade or something, that would give it some more definition and variation. That upstairs little projection, is there going to be a Juliet balcony there, or there are balconies on either side, but I wasn't sure what the point of that was.
And actually, I'll fold in a question, which I forgotten about. How tall are those balconies? Because if they're 42 inches, then the overall opening looks like it's like 6 feet or less, or the height of the door. If they're not, so that's my first a question there, and then continue with it.
Yeah.
Is it just the balconies drawn too tall, or is it the doors not big enough?
It looks like the railing may be drawn a little bit too tall there. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, okay.
It should be down, like there's a solid portion of the balcony, and then there's a rail on top.
Yeah,
to make
okay.
up the difference.
Yeah. And then if there's anything that can be done about them, those columns, for lack of a better word, on either side of the elevation, no, not the center part, but the white stucco part of the original building. You know, if you were designing this from scratch, you certainly wouldn't do that way. You would articulate them somehow so that they stepped in, or there was a suggestion of a base, a shaft, and a capital. And so I don't know how structural they are or what opportunities you might have to articulate those more, but I think those just really are working against this elevation. So simplification is the main word, and get away from trying to blend contemporary and Mediterranean. I don't think that's working for you on this.
All right. Commissioner Jordan?
I'll just say, excuse me, that I think the site solution is very intriguing and supportable. And I would reiterate the comments of Commissioner Howells and some others about simplification. And the other comment I would make is that the buildings, there are other buildings on that block, in fact, on that side of the block, in a kind of Spanish mission style, that I think would offer suggestions for how to make this building fit in so that it looked like it had been on that block for a long time. Mm-hmm. I think there's lessons to be learned from literally the building to the right and a couple buildings down on the left that could be incorporated into this. But it's a intriguing and, as I said, supportable site solution.
Mr. Chair, I do have a further comment. I'd like to know the history of the Craftsman Bungalow. It's a red light to me when Craftsman and Bungalow were put together, and then demolish is another word that's not a good thing for the Historic Landmarks Commission.
Burned to the ground.
I'd like to know it. I'd like to report on that bungalow, even if it's something just when it was built and who built it and so on. There's got to be a bit of a history, but I would like to see something. If it's protectable, I'm not saying that it needs to stay, but maybe it could be moved, because these things, especially if they're made out of redwood and they date from the turn of the century many years ago. I'd like to see something about that historically. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Manuel.
Sure. Can you go to the site plan? Just I think you got quite a bit of landscape space in there, which is nice for how much you're able to fit on the site, as far as units go. I guess you probably still have a ways to go to figure out materials. It looks like from the sidewalk entry, you've got kind of a modern pavement kind of style going there, which wouldn't be appropriate for EPV. And maybe you could fit in another tree or two, but I think you've got a good amount of landscape in there. It's kind of hard to make judgment at this point. It's pretty early.
We will provide a landscape plan the next time around, for sure.
Okay. All right. And Commissioner Butler.
I think most of my comments have been addressed already, but I would support the project and certainly, encourage to move this forward. Simplicity, that thing about the tile, I think that's what grabbed me right off the right at the beginning, was whoa.
Too much.
There's so much
Right.
so much going on there. And I also noticed from the side view, there's a lot of movement, it's busy. So I think it's simplify it down. All in all, I think that would be helpful.
All right. And then the only comments to add to those other ones are, if we can go to the elevations maybe and kind of flip through a little bit. I agree with all the comments said so far. I think that this is sort of a good summary is it seems like you have about 7 buildings going here. And if you simplify the front and then carry that through the rest, I think it's kind of language-wise where you want to go. The front's obviously going to be the front, so it will be the more important and the more detailed. But I think the rest of it needs to feel like it's part of that. And if you want to make a story and have like 2 styles, and because this was the old building in the back, and then this new in the front, just don't do Craftsman because that will be like, too soon. But I do think then if you are going to choose that massing road, then looking at doing a portion of those masses or buildings as a slightly different style or slightly differentiation would make sense. And so starting on sort of the garage side, I think that those openings need to be proportional, proper. Proportions of EPV Spanish architecture openings, however they're articulated. And the openings above look like they're trying to be windows, but they look like they would be massive windows. So they need to be proportioned as well and then detailed as well. The metal awnings, we have been pretty harsh on metal awnings because so many, I think part of it was metal awnings were popping up absolutely everywhere. And so then it became they weren't even that interesting or special. So I think awning-wise, if you're going to go awnings, I think some of the ones that you've done, the cloth awnings, make a lot more sense. However you're going to articulate that, and probably not necessary over the garage visually. Maybe break it up a different way. And then, a simplification in general of your masses and the language with them I think is important. I think the stairs are the least successful in that way because of the combination of the materials as well as that 3-story element. When I look at it, the plaster openings, it seems only in kind of scanning through my mind of like what built examples in Santa Barbara. I think there's a stairway that's 2 or 3 stories that's near with parking garage on State Street near the theater, Granada Theater, fairly close to there. But I think it was done in the 70s, and I think that as a form, something that big should have something huge above it and around it, and I don't think that's where you're going with it. So I think those need to be studied. And then I'll leave the other comments for as you develop it, but I'll try to summarize what we've heard so far. So I think in general, as the footprint, and actually I would add one more piece. I do think this is getting to a zone where neighborhood compatibility and trying to fit housing, which is important to fit it in, is now in this dicey sort of area of like next to 1 stories, literally removing 1-story bungalows, and putting large housing complexes next to it. So I think that in this case, it's seeming to work, and I think that you don't have the light issue as much. But going in other projects as well, I think it's going to be hard to fit 4 stories in a lot of these lots. So I think, but that being said, I think your floor plan and site plan, I think from the other, what others have said as well, is the general massing, it does work. It seems to work pretty well for the site, and it's a good use of getting a lot of residences on this tight lot. So that one of the other key comments was look at other precedents, especially very close by, as for both the language and expression, both on State Street and along the side. Simplify, so simplify the front elevation as well as simplify the side elevation in terms of less languages, just having 1 or 2 languages that you're working with. And obviously Spanish Colonial Revival is the key. And simplifying the front with less elements, including the tile is standing out too strongly. Accentuating the front entry, what was the entry doors, but at least having a feel for that was also a comment, especially the center portion. Don't regarding the stylistically, don't take it in a contemporary way. Remove the contemporary horizontality of a lot of the proportions and detailing, and go towards a more appropriate EPV style. On the front, the corner piers, articulate the corner piers articulate them more and give them either a base, shaft, and capital, or some other way of articulating them. For the bungalow that's being proposed to be removed, if more information can be provided, more information should be provided about it, whether that's the city architecture historian or other, some sort of an analysis, even a simple one. And then also to look at moving it as opposed to just demolishing it. And then on the landscape side of things, the landscape plan, to provide a landscape plan the next time. And then also the hardscape needs to be EPV appropriate. And it was also noted that there is a good amount of landscape, and that is appreciated. Did I leave anything off that anyone wants added on?
No, but I have one more suggestion. That on the garage, in lieu of those openings or windows, maybe you consider a perforated masonry screen or something that looks traditional.
Grill.
Yeah, a grill-like thing.
Yep. All right, well, that one on. Any other? Is that on? All right. So those are the comments. This was just for a pre-application consultation, so probably be a motion with those comments for...
No motion.
No motion at all? Or just pure comments and that's it?
I think it's just pure comments, so we'll just,
Okay.
I think.
Were they pure?
I think, Ms. Ternaskaya, if you could just confirm that you got all of that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I think
All right.
that should suffice.
All right, sounds good. All right.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
I do want to mention that in the PRT report, there is an analysis by the city historian on that home. If you want to, that might be the first place to
Okay,
look.
yeah, exactly. Perfect, thank
She's
you.
on vacation right now, so.
Otherwise, you probably would have told us all that.
Thanks
All right,
very much.
thank you. Okay, so our next, let's see, we've got 2 more, yeah. I think we'll do maybe a 10-minute break, and then a little recess. We'll all get a coffee.
Non-existent coffee. Imaginary virtual coffee.
All right, yeah, so we'll adjourn for now. Or not adjourn, but just put on pause. I figure if I mention drawings, printed drawings, and coffee enough, eventually. Reopen Historic Landmarks Commission, May 25th, 2022. All right, reconvene. Are we good? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so we are on to item 4. This is 820 Sima Linda Lane. This is for concept review. It's a new item. This is the Spanish Colonial Revival style residence designed by noted architect Carlton Winslow, FAIA, in 1926. Is listed on the city's historic resources inventory. The project proposes a 402 square foot demolition and construction of a 898 square foot first floor addition, a 795 square foot second floor addition, a 185 square foot second floor terrace and an 845 square foot 3-car garage to the existing 5,300 square foot single-story, single-unit residence. The project also proposes a demolition of a 720 square foot swimming pool and spa and the installation of a new 1,000 square foot swimming pool and spa and 220 square foot pergola, as well as the addition of 2 uncovered parking spaces. The site includes an existing 720 square foot accessory structure. The proposed total of 7,000 square foot of floor area on a 46,000 square foot lot is 140% of the maximum guideline floor to lot area ratio, FAR. No final appealable action will take place at this meeting. Project compatibility findings and major alterations to resources on the historic resources inventory findings will be required for project design approval. All right, and there was a 2003 Historic Structures Sites Report. All right, so with that, welcome. If you would
Thank you. I'm Mark Shields
introduce
with
yourself.
DesignArc,
And pardon me, can you speak into the
Yeah, so that-
microphone? And
yeah,
then
get right
you'll
up.
have to turn
Like
your
that?
microphone on, the green light.
This isn't Zoom anymore.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Mark Shields with DesignArc, and my partner in crime, George Mansour.
I don't know if yours is on. There we go.
And we'd like to start with a brief presentation from Jay, our historian, and he's going to give you a quick synopsis for those people who weren't able to make it to the site this morning. I think it's nice to have a quick overview of the history of the property.
And I'm sorry, you all can switch seats. They replaced the chairs and we don't have enough, so I'm going to work on that.
No problem. Hi, my name is Jay Carlander. I'm a historian, and I just drew up a brief kind of one-page synopsis, and I handed copies out to those of you who were able to make the site visit this morning. For those who weren't there, this site was once encompassed by a single large 162-acre estate known as Billings Park, owned by one of the founders of Union Carbide, Cornelius Billings. And he established the site in 1918 and commissioned Francis T. Underhill to build a palatial house and design the grounds. The buildings on site were, for the most part, destroyed in the 1925 earthquake. And so then Billings hired Winslow, Carl Winslow from Los Angeles, so we had good taste in architects, and hired Winslow from Los Angeles to come up and redesign a new sort of main house, 3 bungalows and 3 guest houses, of which this study property is one. Starting in 1926, and then he very quickly, across the next 4 years, added on to the house. So it starts as a 1,600 square foot, 1-story, 4-room house, and in 1926, and by 1929, it's over 5,000 square feet with many additions and a garage, and actually comes to look more like signature Winslow architect with lancet arch chimneys and multiple roof lines in the Spanish Revival style. There were also some additions, well, actually just not too many additions to square footage, but there was a detached garage built in 1957, so this is all post Carl Winslow's changes to the site. The lot was split in the 80s. There was some re-roofing in the 90s. The architect James Macari in the mid-90s added landscaping and hardscaping around the house. There was quite a bit of interior remodeling that happened around 2000, and then there was a pool installed at the west end of the property. And so that's the basic overview and history of the house and the site.
All right, thanks, Jay. Get reoriented here.
Oh yeah, so just so you know, we have our screens here. We're seeing the same thing that's going on there.
Oh,
So for you
good.
guys to walk us through the
Oh,
project.
good, okay. While we keep this
Yeah,
site...
and thank you for the hard copy stuff.
You're
to flip
welcome.
through.
For the overall site explanation, like the Billings estate was on top of a knoll, and then, George, you might point out our subject property, which is number 18, and then the other 2 guest houses, which are to the south there and there, so all built over around the same time, and just larger homes beautifully designed and great views of the city, I'm sure in the old days when there were less trees, and the ocean for that matter. We did a study in the neighborhood in terms of the FAR, of course, and then the yellow dots represent all the two-story homes that surround our property, just for your information. Why don't we head to the beginning of the yes, as Anthony said, the existing house was about 5,659 gross square feet. Our plans include an addition of a 3-car garage and a master bedroom on the second floor. These two elements add to the square footage. The total square footage is roughly around net around 7,221 square feet. The FAR in the neighborhood, we are 153% of the FAR, and that is apparently acceptable without a mod. So we're kind of in the same area. We're number 7 on in terms of the overall neighborhood compatibility in terms of size of homes. So we're surrounded by a lot of big homes and some smaller homes too, but we kind of rank number 7 in that after our addition. Can move on to the next slide. For those of you who weren't there this morning, these are some photographs of the site. I think rather than go through them all, we might go to the third photo, George, from the top. If we can blow that up. No, went to the right. See how we do here. The front of the house, there's a circular drive that is the main entry, and this elevation photo is the front of the house, which is actually an addition to the 1,600 square foot main carriage house. So very, very formal entry on axis with the fountain, and just kind of more of a formal portion of the house. It has some nice details. If you go to the lower slide, you can see that the wood strut holding up this tile element over the west-facing window is kind of an interesting detail. The house has some Andalusian chimneys, but I think one of the main characteristics of the home is that it changes from a more formal facade entry as you walk around the back to the west to a very casual, not highly detailed home. The other views we might look at are coming up the street on Sima Linda. If we have the camera, you can pass that out. Those are bigger.
City TV, is there a way to zoom in here? Are they cameras not moving?
So you can zoom in on there if you use the zoom controls?
You zoom into something that's hard copy?
Oh, you're asking City TV to zoom in on.
Or maybe, is that what?
No.
Anyway, we can also zoom in on we have the same photo on.
Oh, you have the same.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Okay, yeah,
That's just easier, I'm sorry. So you can find the same photo, George. Sima Linda wraps around the home, and so there's 2 entrances. One is the more formal entrance I just pointed out. The secondary entrance, which you're looking at here on the right, is the entry to the north side of the home, which were the old garages that were actually remodeled to become bedrooms. So this entrance is less formal, more casual, and this is the entry where if you were to turn right, you would approach what we propose to be a 3-car garage.
And just for clarity, could you go to I know it's difficult to jump in and out, but can you go to the site plan, just show that real fast?
Yes.
For good sense.
So on the right, you can see the circular entry drive that would drop one off at the formal entrance. And at the top of the screen is the secondary entry off C. Melinda, which would lead to our proposed garage addition.
Great, thanks.
And let's return to the slideshow. If you were to go around to the western side of the home, because I can't review all of these slides, I would look at view towards the west, one more to the right.
Zoom in.
Hit the Z key and then drag a box around it. That's
Okay.
Oops. We're getting the hang of it.
File deleted. Okay, Z.
And then just draw a box around what you want to zoom into.
There we go. Okay, that's nice. So the western side of the home is much more casual than the front entry off C. Melinda, and as Jay pointed out, has been added on to over the years in a series of three remodeling projects. So this morning on the site, we were trying to figure out which portion was added onto when, and it's a little bit confusing, but we finally figured it out. But my point is that the back of the house, or the west side of the house, is very simple. It's got a combination of roof slopes, of gable ends and hip roofs, chimneys punctuating the roof lines. Some of them are very simple, kind of George Washington Smith style, I would say, and then a lot of the other chimneys have more of Andalusian kind of detail to them, which is kind of more interesting. Let's move around to the north elevation, which would be the proposed
Zoom out.
garage.
Zoom all the way up, Control 0. You can also drag with the hand if you want to drag right over to the phone.
Control 0, that's good.
That would be at the bottom, George. There, right to the left. There you go.
You want to see this one?
No, that one. That one, yes. So the secondary entry leads to this parking area, and the wing that you're seeing here was once a two-car garage, remodeled over time and eventually turned into bedrooms and offices and whatnot. And so our plan is to remodel this end of the home to add a three-car garage and a second bedroom upstairs, which is the master, with a terrace that looks out over the to the east. Might as well go to the overall floor plan and take a look at that. And at the top of the screen, you can see our proposed, again, the secondary entry and our proposed three-car garage on the north side of the property. This, I feel, is a good place for an addition because it is secondary to in location is secondary to the main formal entry, and back of it to us, in a sense, and also separated by a nice courtyard, which we plan to work on eventually and enhance with more interesting landscaping. We're also proposing to add, demo the existing pool and add a lap pool to the west, which you can see in plan here. Adjacent to the lap pool would be a pergola. That's just a barbecue and an open trellis. And adjacent to the pool to the south, we plan to add a patio and remodel the western facade of the home where the patio is proposed. And that's just to the right, George, right? There you go. So that area of the home will be extensively remodeled, and the exterior changed a bit in terms of opening up with more French doors to match the existing door system in the home, but we're not actually changing the skin of the building. In this plan, if you wouldn't mind blowing this floor plan up, George, as well.
We can go to the actual.
Yeah. This is an enlarged view of the plan, and the pink area indicates the additions to the home. At the top of the page, you can see we've added a three-car garage, and to the right, there's a storage space for surfboards and bikes. On the left side, which is the west side, we have a mudroom with a few steps up to a main hallway, which is our proposed remodel on the interior of the house. You have the arrow, you can point to that axial hallway. There you go. Which also kind of matches the main entry hallway, which is very strong, that some of the members had a chance to visit this morning. And you can see that on the left side of that, which is the western side of the property, you can see the kitchen remodel we're proposing and the French doors leading from the family area out to the pool. So those will be a change in the facade. There's also the light pink area above the kitchen, which is a niche, which I pointed out this morning, an odd kind of chop cut into the building. We plan to infill that and use that space for a future bathroom. The other pink area, which is in the center of the home, is an odd convoluted skylight, barely, but it's just between two exterior walls. So it's very odd in plan, and we plan to remodel that area and rearrange that space. Let's take a look at the existing elevations now. These are the just very basic exterior elevations I'm showing before remodeling and after remodeling. The first slide you see at the top is the front elevation, which is facing south, again, that formal entry. The next one below is a section cut showing the northerly wing beyond. Next slide. The upper sketch here is the north elevation, which we pointed out earlier, which is a secondary entrance. The bottom slide is that is the western side of the home where we proposed the lap pool, and then to the left you can see where the existing garages were. There's a door there, and that again was extensively remodeled and changed to small rooms. Next slide, please.
And you're running low on time now,
Okay,
as
I'll
an
rush
out
through
of
this
time.
then.
But maybe if you can, in the next couple minutes here, 2 minutes.
So, going back through the elevations, again, the upper elevation here is the formal entrance, and then beyond to the right, you can see our proposed garage and second-story addition, which is just back on the separate wing. The second slide down from the top shows a section cut through the main courtyard with our addition to the right, which is a terrace and a master bedroom upstairs. We hope to use the same we want to borrow some of the same interesting detailing that Carlton Winslow used, which would be the strut, which is a quick detail shot of that, George, on the right. Pan out, just pan out. Anyway, it's just, there you go. So we'd like to use that same detail, reiterate that over this little awning that comes off the French doors to the master bedroom. This architecture we're keeping relatively simple. It's not as fancy as the facade at the entry, but we feel it works well with the existing simpler design of the more westerly portion of the project. Next slide, please. We plan to use all this, match this simple detailing, which there's a lot of interesting, as we saw this morning, cornices combined with eave rake details that are a little bit unusual. We plan to reiterate and use those details as well. The upper slide is a photo or a slide of the three-car garage, and then above that is the master bedroom, which has an elongated hip roof, which I think blends well with the hip roofs beyond. The lower slide is the western elevation, and from the left side, you can see that is where the old garage wing existed, and then our second-story addition. We're using the hip roofs and one gable to kind of blend into the existing roof line, which is varied, and then the chimney kind of reiterates the Moorish or Andalusian style that the main house has here and there. So we plan to use a lot of the interesting details that Carlton Winslow used as well.
All right.
That's about it.
All right, great. If that finishes your presentation, let's open public comment. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this? And we'll start with our online friends.
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. So I can see a few members of the public attending via Zoom, so I'll start with them. If you would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak, and I will call on you. All right, so I don't see any hands raised for this item, so I'll move to in-person public comment. If anyone wishes to speak on this item, please fill out a speaker slip and bring it to me. But seeing no one, and we did receive written correspondence for this item from Susan Budinger and Jeff Hara, Susan Giordano, Nancy Even, Andrea, no surname was given, and Marcy Burton. So yeah, with that, I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Grumbine. Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you. All right, so we'll close public comment and on to the commission for questions. So, questions? Bring out your historic questions.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Drury.
Would it be appropriate to say that that correspondence was from neighbors in support of the project?
That would be fair to say. Thank you for saying it. All right. Questions from the commission?
No questions from me, sir.
No. I have a question just so you don't get off too easy.
Yeah.
The garage, so and we have it up here, so it's good. So you have the two cars that are longer in plan. Did you look at the depth and trying to make it all even? Was there an argument aesthetically or for other reasons to break them as you have from two car and one car, sort of the massing?
The reason that I did that on this facade is relatively clear, and that is that we wanted to break up this facade a bit, and so we actually extended this little low roof element forward. It's about 3 feet forward, and those garage doors may be forward as well. And so we have the one single garage back, and we like that because it mitigated the height on this elevation, even though it's sort of a very secondary elevation from the street. We felt that it just helped melt the garages into that facade a bit better.
Okay, thank you. And that is it for my questions. So, any other questions before we go into comments? All right, who wants to kick us off with comments?
Well, since nobody else is diving in, it's eminently supportable. I don't have any issues with the addition proposed. The only slight aesthetic thing that I thought of to comment on, because I gotta find something.
Yeah,
don't I?
side flip, sure, yeah.
Yeah. Is on, let's see, what sheet is that? I guess it would be, yeah, A 3.2.
I'm gonna grab that, George.
And that would be
First set of elevations, correct?
the east elevation,
Which is the top one.
proposed east
There you go.
elevation, the lower one, yeah.
Can you blow that up, George, the top one? Is
Oh,
it
it's-
the one
I
you're
think
looking
it's the
for?
Be the
bottom
lower one.
The lower one,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, and zoom in around your addition there. Yeah, so anyway, you've got a long expanse of the guardrail there, and I'm just wondering if you maybe want to consider interrupting it with a couple more piers, just like you have, that, you know, aren't the full height, but kind of align with the roof brackets. And then
Easy to do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It might kind of break it up.
We had actually looked at that at one point, and just, anyway, it was one of those things, yeah. I
And
agree.
so, I'm assuming the floor is down lowered, so you got a combination of stucco and then guardrail to come up to the 42, is that what you're doing?
Yes, so you don't feel the 42-inch height, which is always odd to me.
Yeah.
The other thing interesting I forgot to mention about this earlier is that there's a really nice drop in floor height from the finished floor of the main residence to this garage level.
Which is
So
down lower.
we're able to do like a split level and keep this whole addition relatively low by 3 feet or so lower than it would have been. So we liked, that was an opportunity, and that seemed to work out well.
Gotcha. So what's the difference between the other main floor of the house and then this upper level?
It would be the difference, that's a good question, I have to do the math in my head, but it would be 8 feet up, not quite 8 feet, maybe 6 feet up from finished floor, so it's an easier flight. You can see that in plan, we have like 3 or 4 steps up, and then you go up again, so we need to get the survey and figure out that perfectly, but we definitely know that it's 3 feet at least. So it's like a half flight up with a medium 3 or 4 steps, so it keeps the building lower.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And seeing it on the site, it makes sense because the topography is dropping away.
Drops away.
Okay. All right, so we were in comments, yes. Okay, the guardrail comment. Any other comments from?
I have a
Yes.
comment.
Commissioner Jordan.
I just want to say that I very much appreciated the site visit for a house like this that's been changed, sometimes sensitively, sometimes not, over a long period of time. It really is helpful to sort out what's what, and I find the project very supportable.
Thank you. Mr. Chair. Commissioner Drury.
Yeah, I regret missing the site visit. That was my fault entirely. I find the whole house as like a master class in detail. Like there's a piece of wall with a little tiny window in it. You know, and it just makes everything. I mean, I wish some of the people who had presented earlier could see these plans. No, but because there's really the telling detail is really important. And you certainly carry that through. I think this is a wonderful project.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
All right, other comments? Commissioner Manuel?
Yeah, I think what you have on there pertaining to landscape is supportable. Just need a further landscape plan for disturbed areas or proposed gardens. And then showing trees to be removed and existing.
We plan to have a landscape architect at some point, for sure. And there's a lot of opportunity there, I think.
Yeah. It's a really nice site.
All right. Other comments? I think the only other comment I would add would be with the bracket, maybe do something a little bit different. Find a way of making it.
It's the idea of it. It is slightly different if you study the two of them.
Okay, I wasn't sure, so
But I get it, yeah.
Okay,
And
but then maybe point that
those
out.
Some of the cool, funky details that he was coming up with were more fun, and actually, owner is interested in that as well. So
Okay,
we'll be coming
great.
back with more detail.
Super, great. Okay, any other comments before I summarize? The commission is finding the following. This project is very supportable, and thank you to the applicant and team and owner for bringing this forward and handling such a great historic structure in a sensitive way. We appreciate as well. We appreciate the site visit that really helped to understand what pieces had been changed and what had not. And along those lines, we also, other commissioners, you can disagree if you want, but I think you all agree that this is an appropriate place to add to, the best place, because it was the back end and also part of many remodels, and so it's the most appropriate way to add to a historic structure. So that's well done on that. Going forward, we'll want to see a landscape plan showing trees being removed, as well as full design and plant design. And then on sheet A 3.2, the east elevation, to study further the guardrail breakup and design there. And then the only other comment was to an additional little slight adjustment to the bracket design at the master bedroom. All right. Anything else, comment-wise, anyone feels? Oh, and I guess we should also add, so it's on the record as well, that we do feel that for the neighborhood, if everyone's in agreement, this seems like an appropriate. We don't feel that the size is going, it's appropriate to the neighborhood and what is there in terms of the FAR. Yeah, FAR and both actually, because the way in which they're adding the second story. But, all right. Everyone in agreement? Okay. Anything else?
I'll make a motion for indefinite continuance.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, with those comments?
With those comments.
All right.
Yes.
All right, yeah, Commissioner Uli will get the second on that.
I had a question regarding,
Yes.
the neighbors sent in quite a few notes, which was nice of them in support of the project. Do those go on record, or do you put those in the minutes, or is there any?
Commissioner Drury got him on record.
Okay.
By saying that
Thank
they
you,
were all in
Michael.
support.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he did a good, yeah. So,
And all public comment is posted to our website and will be archived under
Okay.
this address, so it will be available
Thank
for
you,
review.
yeah. Great.
great.
It was a fun project to work on for both of us, because we got to go see the other two homes, which were.
Good excuse to
pretty
go
fabulous as well.
around the
Anyway,
neighborhood, so.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Under discussion, anything else? All right, in that case, roll call vote, please.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes?
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You want your small sets?
Yes, please. Take some.
Yeah.
All right, next up, next and last up, we have item 5, continued item for final, this is for final approval. This is the Solano Estate, stripped classicism style estate designed by Francis Underhill and constructed in 1913 as a structure of merit. The proposed project consists of exterior alterations to the main residence, new trellises, an elevator to the roof deck, new landscaping, and new exterior stairs and site walls. This is 2 parts. We have Part A, final approval is requested. Project plans must demonstrate a substantial conformance to the plans that received project design approval on December 8th, 2021. This project was last reviewed on December 8th, 2021, and we'll read the notes on that. And then Part B, requesting acceptance of an addendum to a Phase 2 Historic Structure Sites Letter Report that was accepted by the HLC on December 8th, 2021, prepared by Post Hazeltine Associates. The report concluded that the implementation of the proposed project would have a less than significant Class 3 impact on the designated historic resource, and that after implementing the proposed project, the property would maintain its status as a City of Santa Barbara structure of merit. All right, and we have the revised historic structures report. So, what we'll do is, like, as we typically do, we'll have parts A and B, where we'll have and actually sometimes we have, my memory wrong, we usually had it flipped. Like we review the historian's report first, and then table that, and then review the project, and then go back if we need to for anything. Was that our typical sequence? Yeah, okay. So we're gonna go B first, and then we'll go A, and first understand the historic analysis and that, and then table it and go on to the project. So we'll do it in 2 parts. All right, so welcome. If you would introduce yourselves for the record.
I'm Tim Hazeltine with Post Hazeltine Associates, and Pam's over here, and she'll step up when she needs to.
Sure, sounds good.
This report was, this project was reviewed in 2021, as I believe the commission is
And
aware.
actually, even though that is on the project side of things, it'll be good, I think, to read if we can get the minutes up first for it, just
Sure.
also because making sure commissioners that were there, or everything we said. It was a long time ago, that December 2021.
Yes. It's gonna get in there. To say nothing of 1999. when
Yeah.
We did the first report a long time ago.
It's true. Okay.
Let's see. There we go.
Oh.
You better get with the program.
All right. Okay, so we had, let's see, item A, item B, if we can scroll down. Okay, there we go. Motion. So, project design approval with the following comments. The commission compliments the owners for bringing a beautiful architecture back into its standard. The project is a great asset to Santa Barbara and Montecito. 2, as required for structures of merit, the exterior alterations are being made primarily for and will substantially advance restoration of the historic resource to its original appearance, and the exterior alterations are consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards. 2, the project compatibility analysis findings generally have been met as follows. The project's design consistent with the design guidelines. Design of the project is compatible with desirable architectural qualities and characteristics that are distinctive of Santa Barbara and of the particular neighborhood surrounding the project. C, the size, mass, bulk, height, and scale of the project are appropriate for its location and neighborhood. D, the design of the project is appropriately sensitive to adjacent landmarks or other nearby designated historic resources. E, the design of the project responds appropriately to established scenic public vistas. F, the project includes an appropriate amount of open space and landscaping. And then 4, the commission makes the finding that the development, including the proposed structure and grading, is appropriate to the site, is designed to avoid visible scarring, and does not significantly modify the natural topography of the site of the natural appearance of any ridgeline or hillside. The development maintains a scale and form that blends with the hillside by minimizing the visual appearance of the structures and the overall height of the structures. The motion was by Mahan, the second was by Uli, it was 8-0-0. Jury was absent, the motion
Absent.
The motion was carried. The motion.
Think of where I was.
Early Christmas. And then the second motion was to accept the report as submitted, and it was motioned by Uli, second by House, 8-0-0, and jury was still absent.
Oh, still absent.
All right, so, so with that, well, now we're back to here. So if you would kind of walk us through your report, Mr.
Sure.
Eastline, and your conclusions.
Yes, this is the report that Pam Post and I prepared, and it evaluates several revisions to the project that you reviewed. The chair just gave you an overview of findings. And they're actually fairly modest changes. If you look, if you have a copy of our report on page 4.
We're not allowed to have paper anymore.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Gosh. I'm so antediluvian here with my paper
For the
copy.
record. That's right.
I'll have to
Mr.
bring a
Hazeltine, if you'd
tablet.
like to move over to this chair, you can go through the report.
Actually, yeah, you can use the mouse and you can actually scroll through it. Yeah.
I should have had a tutorial first.
Yes, that's right.
I did just now create a little cheat sheet if you
Okay.
need any help, but it should be
Sure.
pretty straightforward scrolling through for you.
Okay.
And there's ways of zooming in too.
Yeah, probably would have been good if I'd brought my glasses.
You have
but
to
I didn't.
zoom into the paper first, and then you can zoom into the.
Okay.
You want to borrow these reading
It's not a
glasses?
touch screen.
Oh, it's not a touch screen, so I'm sorry. I'm not able to read the
We're not
writing.
that advanced yet, but we do have a mouse available for you, and
Okay, that actually would help.
keyboard shortcuts are enabled.
It's a literal mouse.
Yeah, that would be good. So where's the Zoom? Could you?
So you can use the plus to zoom in, and then, or you can go.
Okay, great. Thanks.
That's the
expert.
best way.
Oh, yeah. That's why we rely on him all the time. We're historians. If it's less than
Don't make
100
off with
years
my
old-
glasses now.
Yeah.
How about you direct me through just to make it
Okay.
easier, and I'll open up the HSSR on my.
Okay, so page 4. Oh, I see. Okay, great. I'm learning all the time. And then to the next page. There we go. I'm sorry, it's page 5. I've got a slightly different version. And so the red highlights or outlines are the areas where there have been alterations or revisions to the plans that you had previously reviewed. They're essentially refinements to the pergolas, the rooftop elevator, the fenestration on the south elevation at the base of the building. You can see that outlined in a rectangle. There are some alterations to the terrace that overlooks the original swimming pool that was converted into a koi pond in 2000, and now, of course, the owners are proposing to return it to its historic use as a swimming pool. There's also some alterations to the rooftop terrace on the garage. These revisions are within the vocabulary of the project that was reviewed in 2021, and they're consistent with the architecture of the house, which is an early 20th century interpretation of stripped classicism by Francis Underhill. So the characteristics of the style are basically extreme reductiveness, linearity, the use of simple cubic volumes, and decorative embellishments essentially being confined to things like the main entrances, and in this case there was some decorative work in the interior courtyard. As we went over in some detail in 2021, the house was substantially altered between the late teens and the late 1960s, or actually into the 1980s. It was renovated in 2000. They returned much of the house to a close approximation of its historic appearance, but there were some substantial additions, and those were on the south elevation where most of these changes that are being proposed are located. And so all the areas where the changes are taking place are actually essentially part of the rebuilt and extended south elevation that was constructed in the early 2000s. One other change is to the entrance facade, which if you look on figure 1 that's on the screen, it's on the left-hand side of the building, and you can see the stairs going up there. It's just in the center of the left-hand side. And then on page 6, I believe, figure 3 is a rendition of Don Nolte's design for the door. So this would replace the existing set of doors, which are not original. The changes to the terrace off the the east end of the building are pretty modest, and they're within the design vocabulary of the original terraces, and their installation will not remove a substantial amount of historic fabric, as this area was altered several times in the past. The other changes are to the guest house, which is detached and at one end of the motor court. And that is essentially pretty modest changes to add a gateway and a pergola. And then the landscape architect has refined the design for the landscaping. And essentially the motor court now is a much closer to its existing design in terms of the configuration of the driveway and the center lawn, we'll call it the lawn area. So they're proposing something similar to what they did before, but essentially the overall footprint of that will be pretty similar to what it is now, with new landscaping and a new center walkway. Pam and I concluded that these changes are within the design vocabulary, as I mentioned before, of the previously approved project and the historic character of the building. They're not going to introduce elements that are out of character with the building, and they're not going to result in the loss of historic building fabric that currently exists. So in our conclusion is that the project meets the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. And as Chair Grumby noted, after the implementation of the project, the house would continue to be not eligible, be a structure of merit property. It doesn't meet I think we talked about this before, but it doesn't meet the landmark sort of designation because the building was so substantially altered between the 20s and the 1980s. And so it just doesn't have a level of physical integrity that would merit that level of designation. And so that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much.
All right, so
gonna
let's
table?
go, we'll table the historian's report, and then we'll go to, for the presentation of the architect team and landscape team, and then we'll go to public comment for both, and then we'll come back and have questions.
I do there. I'm just gonna need to reopen it.
I'm Don Nolte, architect.
Katie Klein, landscape architect, here to present for Hollander Design.
And this is Tarn Shea from our office.
All right.
I recognize a few of the faces that went to the site visit, but several of you, I see 3, yeah, maybe 4 folks.
Yeah, he was absent. Yes, and Commissioner Butler's a new commissioner as well.
On the screen there. So there's our color board. We're here for a final approval, and what's happened mostly with the landscape plan is we've edited out the new hardscape materials when we actually saw what these permeable materials look like. So we deleted, got back to tier 2 so that all of the hardscape pieces could only be what we already have at the site, which is this terracotta and then gray concrete from 1912. It's actually a lot of nice work there that's still in good shape, so we were able to match that. So there's a little bit of canvas awning work. There's new terracotta. There's some iron doors that we're matching with the front entry. And we're now proposing an exterior paint color as well. And we did select a color from your historic colors for large buildings. I don't know how best to get this in front of you all, but the upper one is circled that we.
Is this on any of your presentation material?
Yes.
Okay, good. Then it doesn't have to be put on the, you don't have to submit a separate one, thing for it afterwards.
Yeah, we were able to, there was 3 or 4 paints that matched that color, pre-approved color. We found that the Sherwin-Williams was the best match for that. And then moving on, just next, just a few pictures for some of you who weren't at the site. There's an overall view. The motor court right there, the upper left-hand corner, is being newly landscaped. It was not original. So that's being made more residential in style. Just an overview from the east. You can see the semicircular pool that's going to be restored. Yeah, there it was drained. And above that pool is where we're proposing an arbor. We'll get into a floor plan on that. And that corner there is the south-facing. We're almost leaving that exactly as it is. There was elaborate plans, more elaborate plans for an arbor, and now there's very little proposed work there. And let's just go to the first. There's the landscape plan, and you can see the motor court proposed plantings. The guest house on the far left as well. You can see the arbor. That's the introduction of an arbor and a hedge there to give that guest house a little more privacy. And before that, it was just open to the parking area, and it wasn't. There was the historical guest house burned, so we reconstructed a new building there in 2000, and so now we're giving it a little privacy for the new owners. Onto the architecture, what you saw last time, the circular arbor in A, encapsulated in A. We're following the radiated plan view of the tile on that terrace. Let's go to this B. We're working a little interior. Well, there's an elevator we're proposing to take up to the roof deck. On to item C, there is a one-story garage at the lower level, and it's a roof deck that steps off the existing terrace. And we're just putting some shade structure on that and modifying it for a spa on that level of the master bedroom. And I think we would go to the next lower level. There are, in H, that's where the minor change we're taking to the steps. And let's go into the catering kitchen there. So this is 2 rooms where we're taking 2 rooms, combine them for a catering kitchen and with a large rolling sliding iron door in that area right there. And we'll bring the floor tile from the loggia into that space. The roof plan, there was a roof deck there, but we're proposing an elevator to the roof deck now at this walkway that most of it's there, but we're connecting the walkway now to the elevator space and with the smaller roof deck. And elevations on the 3 that's existing elevations. If you have any questions about that, we can come back and on to 3.1. The upper left, you can see we have a very minor elevator shaft at the top. It was story poled and it wasn't very visible. So we've just made that as minimum as we can. We did introduce some light with the roll down screen, a door on the elevator tower there. And the arbor, the upper right-hand corner, that's the garage arbor. And there's some plantings when you look back at the house. We're trying to avoid railing, so we have 2 tiered steps with plantings to avoid railing when you're in the hot tub, blocking the view of the harbor. And there's an A, we're seeing the circular radius new wood arbor. And there's a side view of the arbor on the garage, and C, and then D, the iron doors. The next page, we have details for all of this stuff. And that's a proposal, that's a motif that's in the house, the original house, and as well as when it was restored in 2001. And there we have details for our iron doors, and now let's turn it over to the landscape. Want to take the site plan?
Yeah, could you just go back to that, the larger site plan towards the beginning that's colored? Yeah, perfect. So as Dawn said, it's really minor updates from what you've seen. We wanted to stay in tier 2 for stormwater, so we just did more planting and less hardscape and stuck with what's already existing as far as material, concrete pavers. Some have gravel joints, some have planted joints, and then the terracotta. So if you zoom into the guest house, as Dawn already showed, that area has just been updated to have the concrete pavers with a gravel joint, updated planting. I'll walk you through the planting as well. Nothing has changed in the palette. The last submission, we did a full packet with all the different plants, and nothing has changed as far as the palette. If you go to the east pool, I'll just point out what Dawn already pointed out is we just decreased the hardscape material. So you see those concrete pavers at that lower terrace. So that was the update there, so that there's more planting at the stairs down. And then if you go to the south, I'll just quickly repeat what Dawn said. Those stairs is just an update. But previously there was a pergola and a larger patio there. So just to stay in tier 2, we just kept as is and actually added a few planters on that patio. And then if you go back to the lighting, further in the set where we were, where Dawn left off, that one. So I put out the specs for the lighting. It's also in the packet. We're just trying to do a quick presentation here. Just path lighting along the drive and in pathways, nothing that would, harm the dark sky ordinance in any way, and just some fountain lighting as well at the east, or the pool lighting at the east pool. We have some lights in there. If you go to the next sheet, this is just to show our due diligence with the water use. The blue is low water. The magenta is the moderate water, and those areas are mostly shaded. And then this is our planting, just to show that new guest area, the new hedging there in that patio. If you go to the next sheet, the new planting that was added, removing the hardscape at that lower terrace. And then these are the details for stormwater and the hardscape. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
All right. Does that complete your presentation? All right. Thank you. All right. So now we'll go to public comment on either the historian report or the design. So part A or B.
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. So starting with virtual public comment, if any member of the public would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak, and I will call on you. All right, so I don't see any hands raised for this item, and seeing no one requesting to speak in person on this item, and seeing no written correspondence, I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. All right, so to the commission, let's just, now that we've had, if we have any questions for the historians, we can probably ask that as well now, and the group in general, but let's just kind of open it up for questions first. So for questions on anything here.
No questions.
No questions? I have one question. Okay, can we go to the elevation of the side trellis? Yeah, it's the bottom, the other trellis.
Lower.
Yeah, lower one. Yeah, the C box. And actually the other C box is listed in the
Lower left.
So are those posts, is there a post missing there?
There's 4 in the corners.
Okay,
Yeah.
and in plan, can you show me where those posts are?
Yes. There.
Okay, and, oh, you got the dimension there. Okay, 17 foot.
And there's a moment frame down and steel beams in the garage to make that happen.
Okay. Okay, that's, and then I guess I'd ask a follow-up question to that. Is that span seeming a little long? And do you think about any other way of shortening it?
Well, it's already engineered, and they're 8 by 14, and I think it should be all right. If you're thinking of, look at the elevation and blow that up, you a little more heft in that. And also, it's tying into our other trellis, which has been there on the long south-facing trellis. So we're sympathetic to that.
Is that drawn to scale in terms of the elevation, the depth of that beam?
Yes.
Or those? Okay. Because it just seems like it looks like those cross
Take a look at it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want it to sag.
Okay,
Sure.
yeah. Okay. All right, that was my only question. All right. Any other questions before we go to comments? All right. All right, comments. This is here for, okay, so this is for final approval is being requested. And they must demonstrate substantial conformance to the plans that received project design approval. So is there anyone feeling it does not conform to those other plans? All right.
I wasn't there.
Yeah, so you don't get to vote. So your opinion doesn't matter.
You were, how we say, absent?
Okay, so now the question is, the question is for final approval. Is everyone feeling like these are acceptable to give final approval for?
Very minimal changes.
Okay. Yep. So who wants to make a motion?
I will make that motion for final approval.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Motion by Vice Chair House, second by Commissioner Uli. Any other discussion? All right. Roll call vote, please.
All right, I'll start with Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorden.
He had to
He
leave.
stepped away. Commissioner Drury,
Abstain?
Commissioner Butler, Vice Chair House,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
I'll move acceptance of the historic addendum Phase 2 report.
Second.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Uli, second by Vice Chair House. Any discussion? All right. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, I'll start with Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes. No, abstain.
Although with the historian's report, this is the historian report that is here in terms of, it was the revision for it. So I think you probably can vote for
I'll
it.
say yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Butler,
All right.
Vice Chair House,
Then I'll say yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
All right. Thank
you
you
all
all.
very much. Thank you.
And for the record, Commissioner Jordan would have been here if he had stayed till 4:45.
And sorry, we were an hour behind schedule.
Yes,
but,
exactly. Thank you. All right. Oh, appeal period. This decision is appealable to City Council within 10 days. All right. Thank you. And anything else before closing meeting? All right, meeting is adjourned. you.